Steps up and throws to the end zone, and Dixon is in. Touchdown.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Here's Gordon again. Jump cut in the hole. Busts it to the outside. And Gordon diving for the end zone. Touchdown, Oklahoma State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Now the throw across the middle. That was caught. And on a broken tackle, J.P. Richardson. Touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
And here's Green. He's going to keep it. And Green breaks loose. Garrett Green across midfield and forced out of bounds at about the 25 by D. Winters.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Lance Leipold's group with the 14-zip lead on Matt Campbell's Iowa State team. And Jalen Nolan is out to the races. Down the sideline. Noel tripped up inside the 5.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
R.J. Harvey direct snap. He keeps it. And now UCF has a touchdown to start the ball game.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Tuesday afternoon as we count down towards a full week of college football, including games that will be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I think even Sunday and Monday, because of college football has hit. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina on the set. I'm in the timeout corner where I belong. And also today, Jack McKenzie, Garrett Ross, and Emery Winter are in the studio. We'll get into a topic that is really just nonstop. We brought it up a little bit yesterday, but a little bit heavier into what Dennis Dodd had last night reporting about UConn, the Big 12, a possible vote, etc. But also today, Chris Venini from theathletic.com, RJ Maryland, wide receiver, SMU. Craig's off the radar, Paul's top 5, Hall of Famer John McClain today, and also Ricky Thompson, Baylor sideline analyst and former player, will join us. We'll also break down a few of the first week games, including Baylor, TCU, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, as a discussion for today. Now, we can ride it, hide it, and run from it, but the UConn story is out there. Dennis Dodd last night with CBS Sports with the story, basically that 6 schools lean in favor of the move, at least as of now. 2 of them are against it, and then there are, 8 that are not so sure. Fox apparently doesn't want to have anything to do with this. Guys, this is a story. I thought about this more and more. I'm going to read a note from an alum who had his take, who's a part of a UConn collective. Craig, you mentioned yesterday bad timing. I just wish this would go away, but I know it's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to go away. I don't know who put this back out there as far as the timing itself goes, whether that was a UConn move or a Brett Yormark move or whose move it was. I have no idea, but, yeah, I don't like the timing of it. I think I made that very clear yesterday. You had an entire offseason and, days before the opening week of the year, actually, few days before, the week 0, it got going, and now here it's very much on the front and center for Big 12 folks, at least. I don't know how much people nationally care, but obviously Big 12 country realignment's been an ongoing topic, and here we are. I don't love the move. I don't think it adds much in terms of football. I know that football is not necessarily the big picture that Brett Yormark has in mind with this move. I understand there's the caveat of, well, the other sports would join in a couple of years, and then football would basically have to prove itself, if you will. At least that's what I had read and in some of those articles. And, sounds good, I guess, but it does nothing for me, guys. It really does. It does absolutely nothing for me. And I understand the whole basketball side of it. I think, obviously both men's and women's would benefit from that. But you are talking about 1 game a year for your favorite school probably. And I'd be interested in some, but it's not going to change my viewing habits that they're suddenly in the league,
Our opinions are known. I don't think any of us are on board with it. If it happens, it happens. We cover it, if it, whatever.
Yeah.
Here is Bob Thompson. Let's skip over to this one, Garrett. We haven't heard from Bob in a while, but Bob keeps up with a lot of the television information. He said, given we don't know the value of the Big 12 deal, starting in 21 and 23, we'll use current deal numbers. UConn is slated to get about $7.2 million on average each year with the new Fox NBC TNT deal. UConn doesn't leave for the same money, so let's just say, okay, it's a $10 to $11 million move. That represents roughly 35% of the current Big 12 media deal, much higher allocation than is normally allocated. Question then becomes, is UConn football worth $20.7 million?
No.
I would say no. I don't know the exact numbers, but that doesn't sound like they would be worth that overall. So no, I would say no on UConn football being worth that much. Yeah.
Here's Mark D'Amelio. He is, by the way, a UConn alum, founder of the D'Amelio Huskies NIL Collective.
An influencer family, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I do not want UConn to leave the Big East. I'm not going to read this whole thing, and I got it written here in front of me. I would prefer us stay independent, but we don't have the financial resources from TV contracts, donors, or the state of Connecticut. I don't believe UConn taxpayers want to fund UConn football. Last time we stayed complacent, we got shut out of the ACC, stuck in the AAC. We need to control our own destiny, and it seems like the Big 12 is the right and only opportunity we have if you believe the future of college athletics. We don't know. Everything's going to shake out, but we need to put a stadium on campus. And he got blasted. A lot of people, I saw some of the direct messages, et cetera, to him. They were like, F off. They did not like what he was saying. But they're torn. You can tell that most everyone attached to UConn is torn on what they want to.
They want what they kind of have, but they want more money for it. I think ideally they'd stay in a basketball-driven conference. Now, granted, the Big 12 is a basketball-driven conference, but, I think that if you had your ways, you'd stay right where you are and somehow magically get several $1 million more per year. But that's not realistic, so it's very clear that the people entertaining this idea or pursuing it, it's all like anything else in college football. What does it come back to? It comes back to money, and that's all there is to it. UConn needs to make more money to stay at or join a certain level where they feel like they belong, and that's not all of the fan base, mind you. There's plenty that are against this move entirely, even if they don't end up being able to close any gaps or stay at a certain level outside of basketball. Basketball, they'll be fine, but I understand the the pursuit of the money part of this. That's what every other school's been doing this entire offseason, right? That's what Texas and Oklahoma moved to the SEC in part for. That's what the Pac schools moved in part for, to both the Big 12 and to the Big 10. So it's not like they'd be the only school that's been doing that recently. But I don't like the part where he mentions, like, if we don't do this, it's almost like the Big 12's saving their football program. And I don't like the idea of, like, the charity aspect of this. It's like, you get the basketball, and that's great, but you basically have to fund their football program and just hope they turn a corner at some point because they're getting more money.
Right.
And I don't know how much I love that idea as, a follower of the conference.
Well, the Huskies have...
I mean, I couldn't agree with what he said more, is that you're basically taking Connecticut basketball and everything else and then funding their football program and hoping it turns out. This does nothing for me.
Okay, do you think they could do enough down the road, which is like 7 years from now, to have a basketball-only contract, which is what your Mark wants, and I think other conferences are starting to understand that UConn basketball is right now, they are it. They are the standard. But enough in that to fuel enough to pay them without anybody else giving in again like they have for the last two increases in the conference?
No, I mean, like, just for the men's and women's basketball, which would certainly increase the basketball value of your conference. But again, we don't really know what what does a basketball dollar increase mean relative to what a football dollar increase would mean. And they don't add football value. In fact, they take away value in almost every metric that you can think of. So they also don't have, from that guy's even own statement, they don't have enthusiastic support. And if this isn't well thought of in UConn circles and in Big 12 circles, then maybe this is just something they need to let go.
This is from Bracket Cat. The timing is so UConn can give a 27-month notice to get out of the Big East in time for 2026. Let's talk about this. Their football team. And listen, there are teams that in the Big 12 that have had some bad droughts. Kansas, Baylor, Kansas State, among others over the years. The Huskies have not had a winning season in football since 2010. They've won 13 games in the last 6 years. Now, we've also learned that if you bring in the right kind of markets and the possibilities when it comes to numbers, it doesn't matter whether you're winning or not, because Rutgers, of course, had their long stretch of being average at best along the way. They would get men's and women's basketball in 2026. Football wouldn't even come along till 2031. And we're talking about it in 2024. Think about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the part about realignment that can be dizzying and kind of annoying sometimes, is that it's always like down the line. You know what I mean? Like the conversation never stops, because it's always like 2 years from now, 10 years from now, 5 years from now. And so it never ends. And then like we saw last summer, the moment it actually does happen and becomes official, it's on to the next thing. It's on to, like, all right, they just, after an entire pursuit of a year long of 4 Pac-12 schools, the Big 12 got what they wanted. Less than 24 hours later, Oregon State and Washington State, can they join the Big? And it's just like, Jesus Christ. So, like, that's realignment talk for you. It's always, further and further and further, and it never ends. And so, yeah, this is a move that you're talking about 7 years down the line from now, and far as, like, official entry all across the board with that next TV contract and all of that. So, yeah, it's a long play. It's not a near-term play that's going to make a whole lot of difference right away. It's what you're banking on the future looking like.
And UConn fans also, there's a segment of them, I believe, that would like to go, wait a minute, what if the ACC does have their issues in the next year or two? Would we not want to be a part of them, as especially a basketball conference and also location? Dennis Dodd reporting that there will be financial benchmarks that UConn would have to hit before football even joined the league in 2031. This was compared to, in this article I read today. Listen, by the way, UConn basketball, men's and women, we know where they are. We know who they are. We know what Hurley has done in Gino. This is nothing against UConn. It's just being honest about what we think they bring to the table, which we don't have a vote. It's like at 2 o'clock at the bar going home with the only girl who is left. They'll come if they have, whether they have UConn or not. I thought that was a little bit
Well,
shady.
the thing is I also don't understand why this has to happen now at all.
Well, he just mentioned bracket cat as far as the notifying, but even still, I'm with you though. Like you could have done this earlier than you just did, because like you would have still met that deadline had you done it. I don't know, any time in the last 7 months when there hasn't been any football, but all of a sudden the day before or like the few days before the opening kickoff, like all of a sudden it's major headlines.
Can we let the Four Corner schools play their first college game?
Well, that's what I just said about like they just announced they're joining after all this back and forth, and like 24 hours later, it's like on to the next schools that we could bring in. And at some point, I'm like, are we actually rooting for what's best for the conference, or are we just getting off on the fact that like the Big 12 scooping up schools and it's a never ending, like how many can we grab, whether it makes sense or not, And I don't know. I guess that depends on who you are and how you kind of take in the information. So to each their own, from my standpoint. But yeah, it just feels like the realignment wheel never, ever stops, especially when it comes to the Big 12. And that's cool in some ways, but I also think it does take away from like, can we watch the teams we've been reviewing and previewing and looking forward to? But like, no, now we're on to UConn again. Like what the... And so that part to me, I don't enjoy, but I get it.
The last time when I spoke with a couple of people at the administrative level among the Big 12 was in the summer when Colorado was saying yes. And then, of course, eventually the Arizona State, and also Utah. And I was told that not infatuation, but the need of UConn to be a part of the Big 12 from the commissioner's office was something that I've said this before, I'll say it again, is something that he would lose that battle. It would be a wart, a hickey. When everything he was doing was not touching the goal, but it was turning the goal, but it was pretty good. And he was willing to try to like maybe change that momentum with this. And here we are now. It's been 2 summers, right? No.
Well,
it's been just
officially
over a
little over a summer, yeah.
So based on what we heard from Dennis Dodd then, about that you've got 6 teams that are like, yeah, sure, let's do it.
Yeah, that's interesting. We kind of just ran over that, but that's interesting.
And then 10 teams that are in some variation of I need to know more information or no.
Nothing worse than a maybe.
Yeah, no. Like
it's interesting that the information is being leaked though.
Yeah.
Like
I think this is planned.
Yeah, you're putting out the fact that like, hey, there's 6 schools on board and they need, I believe it's 12 for the majority vote. So you're halfway there, I guess. No, wait.
You're halfway. If you need a super majority.
6 schools are in. So, so they need 6 more out of the 10 undecided. And so, that's interesting to know that. And I'm very curious of who those schools are. And I do want to say, for any UConn fan who comes across this video, it's nothing personal against you whatsoever. But, like, if somebody just randomly right before Big East basketball season started said, like, we're gonna add, like, just some team you don't care all that much about. That's just sort of random.
Denver.
Yeah, Denver. And you're like, what? Oh, I guess so. Okay.
Yeah.
But hey, you're going to make more money. You're going to make like $1 million more a year. You'd be like, but I don't really care about playing Denver in like baseball. Like, so I don't really, and so that's where we're coming from. And I think UConn fans understand that because there's a good number of them that don't want this move. But again, everybody understands what the move is being initiated by. And that's this need to get on a lifeboat and make more money.
If in fact, there's a way that they could prove that Your Mark and Endeavor and whoever else can prove that UConn brings in money where the original teams that are left in the Big 12 don't have to like, okay, we'll sacrifice a couple of million this year when it's the 4 schools and then there's the 4 more. If they can show it and convince people and it's like this is going to happen, then fine. But until they do, I don't care about like all these diagrams or whatever. Somebody mentioned, schools in the Big 12 have had their problems in football. I brought that up. Right. K-State, Kansas, and Baylor have had extended droughts, but they're part of the original conference. It's like Vanderbilt in the SEC or somebody else in another conference. They're a part of the original conference.
And again, I'm going to go back to that. Not everybody is on board with this right away. And if you go back to the other schools they've added, they probably had to have. I mean, I'm sure there were some people like, well, I don't know about Cincinnati or BYU. Like, I'm
There's
sure
a lot of people that still don't like the Cincinnati
but, like,
move.
as far among those leaders, like you maybe had to sell a couple more.
Sure, you did.
But I do think that it was probably never at like more than half the people in the room were like, absolutely not. I mean, that's where, or I don't know, as opposed to this where, what do you like? I just don't see the additive value, especially for right now. If it's not going to help you in football today, then.
That's my biggest thing. Like, and I said yesterday, like, okay, so we get to 2031. is the Big 12 looking like it looks now, or are there teams on their way out? And
I
so
would bet a body part they won't. They won't be looking like they are now.
Right. And so, like, I mean, there's so much of this is just having to guess what looks down the line, or what down the line looks like. It's Brett Yormark here in 2031.
Yeah.
I mean, does anybody feel like super confident making that bet that he's here 7 more years as Big 12 commissioner? And this is entirely a pet project of his, right? So are you making a move to appease Brett Yormark, but doing it knowing that it is beneficial for you down the long way of another decade from now? Or, you know, is this not the prudent move and you need to stay flexible and maybe not take this on right now? I don't know. I mean, I appreciate that he's being aggressive. I appreciate that he's thinking outside the box, because I know the old regime, with all due respect, would never have kicked the tires on probably half the ideas that they have. And I think there's been some good ones. I think there's been some that have, you know, you're like, whatever, Big 12 Mexico, like, take it or leave it. You know, we're fine without it. But it's clearly, you know, something he's locked in on. I think it's also worth mentioning that Dennis Dodd article. You mentioned the 6 in favor, at least 2 are against. I think you mentioned that. So like, there's 2 that are outright against.
10 of the 16
are not yes votes.
Are not yes or right now they're maybes.
They're non-yes votes.
As somebody that sells a lot, and Paul, you're doing that a lot now more than ever, getting a no is better than getting a maybe.
Yeah, don't don't waste my time.
Yeah.
The other part of it, though, is that Fox is kind of a big part in this, and they are, you know, according to this article, are against the move. Now, that's led to, I saw this spiral into a whole different conversation about, like, the future of Fox and the Big 12's like, I have no idea, dude. And I don't think anybody talking on Twitter honestly has an idea about Fox and the Big 12's relationship in 2031. Maybe they do, because, I mean, who the heck knows with all the anonymity? It might be the Fox Sports president under Bojangles 11 or something. You know what I mean? Like, who the heck knows? But I think that gets, like, so into the weeds of like, you know, of trying to figure out that it's not really worth, you know, wasting too much energy on. But on the surface, if Fox is against the move, then that's obviously very interesting. Well, and there could be long-term political plays here as far as, you know, what they cover in the future or what their relationship is like with the Big 12. And so that was a very interesting note as well about Fox.
If Fox or ESPN, who carry everything,
right?
If they don't want to do it, and they're the ones that are spending the money to do it, then why give them any kind of a crease to go, okay,
you're right,
screw you guys.
But if you are partnered up with Fox and ESPN and one of them says, we want this, and the other one says, we don't, then where does that leave you as the Big 12? And that's why the Fox note is interesting, because clearly there's a tug of war, because we know ESPN wants this.
All right. You know, when we talk about ideas that initially when they're brought up, that sometimes you're like, that doesn't make any sense, or sometimes that makes a lot of sense. Remember when the private equity deal popped up about the Big 12?
Yep.
Remember that? Everyone was like, oh, my God, that's like dirty or whatever. The Wall Street Journal reporting the NFL is poised to approve private equity ownership in franchises.
They've been talking about this for ages.
I know, but this is a little – if they do it and they have all the money in the world, then it's not – at least when some people looked at that initially, I just want to bring that up because that was also on Dennis's timeline that I saw too. Now, we cover a lot, everything college football. We'll have SMU wide receiver R.J. Maryland today because we have a great relationship with their media relations department. Tomorrow, it's going to be Todd Whitten, head coach at Tarleton State, among other coaches, ADs, et cetera, around the country. We do everything we can to cover the game. And, of course, yes, a lot of the Big 12. But also a good friend of ours, Ari Temkin. And he is back on the radio. Tune in radio in the Big 12, their morning show, 7 until 10. It was something we kind of knew about back during media days in Vegas. They launched that show today. Ari Temkin and Big 12 Radio live on TuneIn Radio.
Yeah, I love Ari. Great guy. When we saw him at Big 12 Media Days, I was like, so what's the path? And he said it's kind of like you guys with Sikkim in that all of a sudden, you know, we don't have a thing, and you sit around and wait for about 48 hours, and all of a sudden TuneIn calls up and is like, hey, do you guys want to do it with us? And he's like, and they're like, well, of course we do. So
yeah, James Wesleyan also a part of it as well. Big 12 today will stream live, but it's 7 until 10 Central Time, depending on whatever time zone you're in. But it's good at least the conference has a network. It's not a TV network. They've never done that, but at least a show that all of us have appeared on at some point or another.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy for those guys, and that's awesome and good to know the details after kind of getting a little bit of a tease about it, and good for them. So, yeah, that's great. Now, I wasn't too worried about Big 12 representation necessarily. I think we do a good job. I think various others do as well, but Ari is somebody that does a good job, and so any more voices that can shine a little light, that's great. So, yeah, absolutely thrilled for those guys.
All right, a couple other notes. Remember, we were talking about the Baylor depth chart at running back, right? And so I've kind of done a little bit of due diligence on that. It was or whatever. Dawson Pendergrass, Dominic Richardson, Richard Reese, and also Bryson Washington. And Bryson Washington was the name that showed up that everyone was like, that's good. That's something that we haven't really heard. I'm a great player at Franklin High School. And it is the depth from what I'm being told. Now, I think there's a player or two dinged up in that mix, but one of the things that was brought up, somebody asked me this in the chat as well as far as the running back room, I think Bryson Washington had a really good fall camp, and I think that running back room might be in better shape than we thought. The name that was not on there, you're kind of looking at me like
I've thought the running back room was going to be a strength the entire time. Yeah.
Is there an alpha, though? Probably not, but you have 4 different guys. If they're all healthy, and Dawson Pendergrass, also Richard Reese, Dominic Richardson, who does seem to get banged up a lot, but it's good to see the young man from Franklin and Bryson Washington getting a little bit of that, and I think we may see a pretty good dose of him at some point.
I mean, there's a lot of oars on that depth chart at a lot of places.
Most of anybody in the Big 12, by the way.
So it's like
more than anybody that released a depth chart.
It's not even unique to the running back spot. It's just in general they have a lot of oars on that, and that's crazy that somebody actually went and counted all the Big 12 depth charts to see how many oars they had. But yeah, that running back room is pretty loaded in my opinion. I think that they've got a good crop of guys. That's one of the position groups that I've worried the least about this offseason. I think it all just comes down to they have the offensive line to block for those guys. That's the biggest question to unlocking the offense. If they do, they have a really good offense. Like, they have good tight ends. They have, we'll see on the receivers. I think they have talent. They have to prove it. But, again, that comes down to, I think, having the opportunity to have time in the pocket and pass the football and look down the field, which they didn't have much of, if at all, last year. So, yeah, I mean, that doesn't shock me in any way. Bryson Washington maybe is a little surprising just because he's younger, but it's about time they hit on a young guy because they've had their fair share of running backs that have kind of come and gone or even still around that kind of don't hear about as much anymore or haven't made much of an impact since they arrived. And Bryson Washington coming in pretty quickly and making noise is a great sign, yeah.
All right, here's a note. How about this? Sonny Dykes and his wife, Kate, donated $1 million to TCU Athletics, honoring former TCU offensive lineman Jamal Powell, his name on the Performance Center's weight room, and recognizing Shirley Ennis, the late wife of TCU trustee Hunter Ennis, endowment in her name to support women's athletics at TCU. Sonny Dykes put down $1 million.
Good for Sonny.
God almighty, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's just great. We saw what we just in a smaller scale, but still a same scale of cool when Dion did that for some players that have children with that investment or credit union that was a part of a story we talked about yesterday. So the Pac-12 / now new Big Ten, these schools, and all of them have a history in Oregon, Washington, UCLA, and USC. Garrett, put it up, please, the Big Ten Network. There have to be some fans of these 4 schools that are going, what? The Big Ten Network is, of course, now adding those 4 schools as a part of their coverage. But Comcast and Xfinity in many areas will not have access to live broadcast of the inaugural season of those 4 schools that left the Pac-12. Cannot find the Ducks, Huskies, Bruins, or Trojans. I saw Softy, our buddy who covers Washington and Seattle. He goes, well, I'm changing from Comcast. I'm leaving. Because he watches sports. I think he puts it in his veins and just, like, eats it up. So they had the Pac-12 network, which had its very shaky history. And now here we are. But my question is, why would this be this week? The games start this week, and there's games on that network this weekend. Why would this now be a problem? Why would this not have been taken care of a long time ago? I don't get it at all.
I have no idea. Bob Thompson could answer that question, I guess. I don't know how all of that works, and don't pretend to, but it's, awful timing for a bunch of fan bases who thought they'd gotten rid of having network issues, although I think it was fine out west. It was just more like you couldn't find it here. You had to go looking for it, but, I know it had a little bit of a rocky history, and so you'd think that it would be smoother sailing, I guess, in Big Ten waters because everything's so great and perfect, but I guess not. But I don't know. That's not like you blame the Big Ten for that. It's obviously a cable issue, and I don't know where to begin with unraveling that.
Well, he said this. The Big Ten, someone asked him, Big Ten isn't part of the basic sports package, to my understanding, but Comcast upcharged $10 for those that want it, and now blocking out to the games. And Bob Thompson, correct, therein lies the problem. Big Ten Network lets Comcast distribute as an outer market area in what is now an inner market territory, triggers most favored nations. Clauses for other distributions. Big Ten Network gets booted to a higher tier, and the Big Ten Network will black out until it gets resolved.
If you just were speaking Mandarin Chinese, I would believe it. I don't know what that means, but for those who do, I'm sure that makes perfect sense, but I can't contribute much there. I just know that that's a hassle you didn't want with college football rolling around for sure, and I guess maybe Comcast might be losing some Big Ten fans here in the very near future, I guess.
They'll get it worked out, or people like
everybody else does.
They'll get it worked out. Here's the thing.
Who's going to pay for it?
Somebody. I mean, the people. They'll get it worked out. But here's the deal. Used to change your cable or to find something was it's quite a pain in the ass. But now all I have to do is call up Comcast and go, hey, Comcast, eat a you know what?
A banana.
Go sit on a nail. Don't care. And then you just go and get your thing that has the Big Ten Network, and then you do that, and maybe it's too much, but you go through the season, you cancel it, and you move on. So it's not that hard. That's what the cable companies, I think, are realizing, that these prolonged things. Last year, DirecTV had a very prolonged battle with the company that owned our, I want to say, Fox affiliate. So when I was still on DirecTV, there was a good chance that I wasn't going to see the Cowboys week one, and they got it. Yeah. And they got it done. Right before.
Well, it's like CD and the Cowboys. There's a lot of money involved. But it's always down to the wire, and eventually it always, not always, but most of the time gets done. Real quickly, a couple of the notes. ACC quarterback situation. This is from David Hale, who covers the ACC. Wake Forest is not named its starting quarterback. Pittsburgh is not naming its starter despite Nate Yarnell being the starter after spring. Clemson is not releasing a depth chart because Georgia won't. Stanford could start any of one of three quarterbacks, and North Carolina hasn't named their starting quarterback either, as we are the week of. And then we know at Clemson and Georgia, that's just like turf war, Dabo and Kirby playing mind games with each other. But
look, I don't think that's mind games. That's a de-measuring contest. That's what that is. You've got 2 titles. I've got 2 titles. I know more than you. Oh, you're not going to release a depth chart.
And that's in the last decade they have their titles too.
First of all, if the depth chart was this is such high school nonsense. If the depth chart was that big of a deal, if Georgia, this is what drives me nuts about Kirby Smart. And when I get tomorrow, on the top 5 is going to be the perfect college football coaching staff, and you would think that Kirby Smart would be the runaway guy I would pick, but it's this bull crap that I just can't get behind.
Well, Paul, they're always underrated. They're always overlooked. Nobody gives them respect.
And you think that, putting out a depth chart, you put out whatever you want. You put up whatever you want. And if the depth chart gets to Clemson, this guy's third string, they're going to be like, well, we don't have to worry about him now. Come on. It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Yeah. Well, I got something also funny. Craig, you want to add to that at all? So this is from, I thought this was a really cool tweet. Haynes King, of course, in Georgia Tech. One more time, Paul, we'll bring it up.
Yeah.
Jimbo Fisher.
What happened with Georgia Tech?
They beat Florida State.
Oh,
last
did
second
they
field.
really?
Yeah, on Saturday.
Wow,
afternoon.
I didn't know that.
It was in Ireland. It was overseas.
Oh, I think I saw something about that.
Does that count as a legal game because it wasn't?
Yeah, because
in the United
Northwestern beat
States?
Nebraska just 2 years ago.
Okay,
and it
yeah,
counted.
I just don't know.
Another one of their many. Jimbo Fisher sending Haynes King to Georgia Tech 2 years ago for the sole purpose of ruining FSU's 2024 season opener is next level pettiness.
Incredible. It's definitely worth all that big
I didn't do that
money.
for Craig, and I didn't do that for me. I didn't do that for the audience. I thought you.
Oh yeah, I do.
That was from
Robert Barons.
Robert Barons, who's funny as hell. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that. That is very funny. You know, a friend of mine from college texted me during the game, and I hadn't heard from him in months.
I hate it when people do that.
And he goes, hey, I mean, I wouldn't mind because he's he's going through it. He goes, hey, this guy Haynes King is from Texas. Do you know him? And I said, yeah, well, I mean, I know of him. I don't know him personally, but, you know, we've interviewed his dad on the show. Smoak, knows him really well. And, you know, we did his the last game of his junior year at Longview, which is the best high school game I've ever broadcast ever.
Yeah.
And
That's the one at Allen.
yeah,
Yep.
In the rain.
yeah.
Yep.
It wasn't the best for Craig, but it was still an awesome game.
No, it wasn't. But it was a great game.
It
It was a great game, and I think it was the three of us. That was our opus. Like that was our dream on if we were Aerosmith. Like that game was so good all the way around. But he's like, did you know he was this good? I'm like, yes, I did. The whole time I've been thinking, golly, when this kid figures it out and stays healthy, he's going to make big plays, and people are going to judge him about what happened when he was a freshman or whatever. But
hey, I'm happy for him.
I mean, you know what? I'm happy for him. It's hard to compartmentalize, but I am.
I get what you're saying.
It is.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right, this blew me away. I'm a fan of a program that used to have as good a continuity when it comes to coaches as anybody else in the country, but look at this note about Iowa. Remember, Kirk Ferentz is on suspension this week. The game this Saturday will be the first time that Iowa has played a game that was not coached by Hayden Fry or Kirk Ferentz since November of 1978 at Michigan State.
Wow.
That's like the Pittsburgh Steelers when it comes to Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin type stuff, what Nebraska used to be. And think about that. Since 1978, I was a freshman in college, I think, during that year, sophomore in college. 1978, first time that they won't be the head coach, of course, Ferentz serving a one-game suspension for a recruiting violation.
Yeah, I mean, that breaks a pretty cool streak. He's still heavily involved in the game week stuff. Like, I think he even said, like, you know, basically he just won't be there Friday night and Saturday. Or, you know, it's not going to be, you know, banished from the program in any capacity. Nor do I think anybody expected that. But, yeah, that's still very strange, though. So he'll do as much as he can in the time allotted, and I'm sure they'll be fine as a result of that. But, yeah, just not having him around, I'm sure will be very strange for a lot of Iowa fans, and seeing shots of, you know, somebody not named Kirk Ferentz roaming the sidelines will be, you know, a sight that not many people have seen because of what you just stated there, the longevity that he's had at that program. So, yeah, it's pretty remarkable. And just the back-to-back coaching, when you think about, I don't know, like in that time period, like who would be the program that's had the most head coaches and what that number would look like? I mean, would it be in the double digits for somebody?
I would think so.
Probably,
Since
yeah.
That's 40.
Yeah.
46 years coming up in November.
Sure.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's incredible longevity.
I mean, you could even go to places like Texas, and they've had, since 1978, I mean, a bunch.
Well,
that
they've
would
had
have been
3 or 4 since I even started covering college football.
Yeah, well,
so.
I mean, with Mac went to Charlie, went to
Tom Herman.
Herman went to Sark. That's 4 right there.
That's 4
and that doesn't
in the last
include
15 years.
McWilliams and Akers and whatever else. Maybe not 10, but a pretty high number. All right, let's leave the Branch brothers, but we won't forget about them. Did you guys hear about the Connor Stallions Netflix story?
Yeah, you were gone last week.
I'm not.
okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to. I don't know when I'm going to watch it. I eventually will.
I haven't watched it.
Because I'm curious. I don't think there's been enough time to pass to make it that interesting of a documentary. Also, a bunch of information has come out like the last 2 days that's not necessarily in the documentary. Plus, I don't think Connor Stalions is being honest, which the documentarians at Netflix don't really seem to care about.
No, it's about eyeballs, and he's probably getting some money.
That's everything now. I don't think they care one iota. Nobody does about like the quality of the person or whatever at this stage. Like, do you give me eyeballs? Sure, bring me on. So here's what I said last week. I can understand why it would be of like real interest to Michigan fans, to Ohio State fans in particular, to other Michigan opponents, fan bases. I can see why I'd be very interested in them. Personally, I don't care whatsoever, and I don't want to hear about Connor Stalions anymore. I just am over hearing about this guy. Heard far too much about him last year. That was warranted, but I'm not somebody that is still wanting to hear more of Connor Stalions' story.
Yeah,
I don't like that he's probably making money off this.
Oh, of course.
I don't want to contribute to that. I know me not watching is not a big deal, but it's still like that's probably what's going to happen. I severely doubt, unless it comes out and people just go over the moon praising like the craziness of it, maybe that would reel me in. But other than that, I have no desire to see it.
And the chat room, he's dead to me. I have no interest, no reason. Documentaries are bad. I
wondered if Matt Brown, our buddy,
he's on Thursday, by the way.
Okay, well, I wondered if he had perhaps caught the show, although I'm far from probably the only person that said that last week. But I saw him had a tweet. He had a tweet earlier today of like, I know this is like college football heresy because, you know, the sickos, like you're supposed to care about every little crazy thing that happens. He's like, but I'm pretty over the Connor Stalions thing. I was like, that's what I said last week. I have no desire to watch this guy or learn more about him and his role and what all happened. But I know that Michigan and Ohio State and, you know, whoever else will certainly give them an audience.
Pat Smith said this, and do you have that tweet? And then we're going to come back and discuss the Big 12, the 4 of the 16 teams and their opening week games in their programs. Pat Smith, who's been on the show, Brazen, Cavalier, Imperious, etc. If this was the NCAA, a case in 2004, not 2024, Michigan would be lucky to ever play football again. With the NCAA being neutered now, very little will come from this, even though they were given the letter of infractions this week.
I wonder if there's like an old guy that sits around, like, you know, he's just waiting for his retirement in the NCAA, and people come in and like, tell us, Frank, what was it like? He's like, oh, back in 01.
Yeah.
We really dropped a hammer on Mississippi State. You should have seen it.
Yeah, and then we had North Carolina dead to rights, and they sued us, and then the whole jig was up because everybody realized we can't win any court battles.
Yeah. And then, my God, athletes wanted money, for God's sake.
I like, Frank's like, you know, you need to meet my mentor.
Has anybody
81 years old. He dropped a hammer on SMU. He's got some great tap stories.
Yeah. Has anybody caught on to like North Carolina having the whole academic scandal a few years ago, and yet all you hear is about their tremendous academics and like their Big Ten entry and all? And I'm just like, do we forget about that little incident? But
this is why
I know that's not like that clear cut, but it's just funny.
But this is why theirs was brilliant. So a couple schools, this was a common thing among schools all over the place. Many schools had players suspended, bowl games vacated. Bobby Bowden had games vacated for the same reason of there were classes that athletes could sign up for.
Yep.
And
bowling,
but like all these things that they never had to go to.
It was always the famous basketball.
And have people, they could go to, and then they would just get a grade. And that was it. Like there was no assignments, no work, or if there was, it was like, all right, David, you have these people, Craig, you have these people, Paul, you have these people. They're getting your grade, and we all get A's.
Right.
Like, so that's what it was. So it happened all over the place. Well, the reason the NCAA decided it was an extra benefit was that class was only available to athletes, and it wasn't just football players. It was all across the university. It was only available to athletes because athletes have an earlier registration window. Well, North Carolina won this case because they proved it wasn't an extra benefit because we could have taken that class if we were just regular North Carolina students, and many of them did.
Yes, exactly.
So that's
and by
why
the way,
it wasn't
that's
an
a
extra,
pretty good argument.
That was an extra benefit.
It wasn't just student athletes.
If you're ever looking for a loophole in any type of contract, go hire some college football coaches, officials, and they will find a way to find that freaking loophole, won't they? I mean, to get what they need at the end of it. But no, it's just the whole time, every time I hear North Carolina and academics, I just always have that thought ping in my head of that from years and years ago.
All right, we're about to go like full throttle, stick your head in the tank of gasoline, light it with a match with Ricky Thompson, Chris Venini, RJ Maryland, and off the radar, John McClain. So we got a bunch. Let's take a break here, and Ricky can be a little bit late at 4:05, but we do have a lot of things to get to. We want to go over, and we're going to do this over the next 3 or 4 days, and we'll do this like each week, right, Craig? This is your idea. We got to get a break, but go ahead and tell everybody.
Yeah, so basically there's 16 teams in the Big 12, and we want to be able to highlight every game. Well, with 16 teams in the non-conference, that's 16 games to have to talk about, which is not easy to just do back to back to back. So my idea was, since we're going to have 4 shows Monday through Thursday, you and I won't be here on Fridays, but since we'll be here all 3 together for 4 days, 16 teams, 4 programs a day, and I chopped them up into 4 pods, if you will, and we'll just, when we talk about games every week, we'll do a pod a day. So that'll be 4 games a day, and it'll be the same pods every time that are kind of connected for a certain reason. So, that's how we'll break it down and be able to get all those games in. And obviously, it'll be much easier once we get into conference play. But early on, that's the best way to do it.
We are going to break them in today. Will be TCU, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, Baylor. Tomorrow we'll have 4, then Thursday, and then Paul with what he does on Friday. The next week we'll chew on it again. Eventually, there will be like 8 games for the week. It'll be a little bit easier to digest. All right. Also, Paul, have you put the link up to pick them? I know you got about 9 things you're doing.
Okay.
We did this thanks to Kim Coulter. $100 gift cards and other prizes from sponsors to our weekly winner of the college football pick'em. I am technologically challenged. I went in there yesterday evening when I got home, got on the link, picked my games, done. I've already got them picked.
I just put our pinned tweet in there so that that's easier. Just go to that link there. It has the information laid out all there. And so.
All right. Let's take a break here, Garrett, and then we'll come back with the games that we'll look at. And then we have a lot of guests. I did not line up a guest at all in the 3 o'clock hour because I knew there was going to be so much to talk about. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, my dentist, I love the guy, Dr. Steve Childress. When I went to go see him during the year of COVID, which it depends on how long you want to think it actually lasted, but I went to go see him. I needed a couple of things because I knew that I was losing my grip on my dental work, and my fault. Nobody else's fault, my fault. And I'd been to a handful, and they were always good to me, but I just never really got the message. Dr. Childress is one of those that's going to shoot straight, truth serum, so to speak, and he told me, that's a problem. This is a problem. And, that's going to have to, those 2 teeth right there on your front right, they're going to have to come out. And everything he told me was going to have to be done has been done. Now, I still need to work on my bridge and my front part, and I'll get that done. It's expensive, but I'm going to get it done. And he has given me a game plan for that too. But all the other stuff, the root canals and cavities or the pain anywhere in my dental work, all of that has disappeared. That doesn't mean I can't accidentally bite down on something and ouch, but all of that has disappeared because of what he's helped me do, what he's done for me, and he can do for you with his staff, other dentists, hygienists, and more at Stonewood Dental. My dentist, Dr. Steve Childress in Robinson, Texas.
Get behind the wheel of the 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland at Allen Samuels in Waco. Choose between 2 or 3 rows and save $12,000 or take advantage of 0% financing. Looking for something smaller? Drive home a 2024 Jeep Compass Latitude 4x4 and save $9,760 or take 0% financing and get $3,000. Don't miss out during the Make This the Summer of Jeep event at Allen Samuels in Waco, where we deliver your next adventure. See dealer for details.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Let
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
All right, here we go with 4 of the teams in the Big 12 playing this week. Everybody opening up this week. Some games even on Thursday. There's TCU on Friday and then a big batch of games on Saturday. Craig and Paul, David Smoak, 365 Sports. Let's start with the game on Friday, TCU at Stanford, a late game, and Stanford trying to figure out who they are. But the Cardinal against TCU and Sonny Dykes, and I feel like TCU's going to, I don't know about a vengeance, but I think this is a bounce-back year for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think TCU is going to be much improved just based on their demeanor and their words this offseason and some of their moves. I'm very excited to see what Andy Avalos has that defense looking like and how, the additions of some of the assistant hires they made this offseason, kind of having that bouncing back they were talking about with, a Dana Holgerson, for example, working with Andy Avalos. Like, here's what I would see in that back and forth. I think that's a dynamic that's not unique to TCU, but there's some interesting names in that room that I'm excited to see how all that works together and combines. Dykes, Bryles, Avalos, Holgerson, and there's others as well in that staff. So
who was the other analyst that they brought?
His name's escaped me. Todd Graham, yes. Yeah. I couldn't remember his name. But, yeah, Todd Graham will work with Kendall Bryles to give him the opposite looks. And so I don't know. I think you can feel an air of confidence coming out of Fort Worth right now with that football program, not to the point where you're going to go put them at the top of the standings, but certainly bowl team, yeah, that would be a massive disappointment if they weren't. I like them to win this first game against Stanford. Being on a Friday night's a little bit weird, but it's also the first game of the year, so you're not really locked into a every Saturday type of schedule right now. It's going to be a late kick, though, out west, so not going to see some giant crowd. We've always heard how that can be kind of weird, so you're playing on a late Friday night out west in front of, like, however many fans. Yeah. So Be locked in, I think, if you're the Horned Frogs, for sure. But I feel very good about them to winning this game.
It's a long wait to play that late in the day.
We know nothing about Stanford. No. Really. You just said they're one of any bunch of guys could be starters at different positions.
You know what this is, though? This is an opportunity for the Big 12 to beat the ACC after all of the back and forth talk. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it is.
It's a head-to-head matchup.
But you know what can also happen? So TCU is going to go out to Stanford on a Friday night in a half-full stadium, if that, and play this game at Stanford. And sometimes that can be like, oh, well, these guys don't even have fans. We're going to kick their ass. And then sometimes
sleepwalk.
It has the adverse effect where you're like, oh, this is so boring out here, and then you sleepwalk through a game. I think this is a nice early test for them. They're playing another power conference team. Very curious to see if what Sonny Dykes keeps telling us about Josh Hoover, and by us, I mean us in the media, like he's doing a hard sell on him.
He knows quarterbacks, and apparently we're not high enough based on the way they've talked about him, because I don't think the perception out there is that like Josh Hoover's a great quarterback or in the making to be a great quarterback, but that's kind of the impression you get from Sonny Dykes. So I'm excited to see, how he is after the experiences of last year, but I expect TCU to win. As far as like they got like a 9-point spread, I'm not real into that, but I think I'd take the Frogs there.
9 points. Yeah. South Dakota State.
That's why I'm not in it, because you're 9 on the road, late at night on Friday. That's why I don't dabble.
South Dakota State, the defending FCS national champions. We had their coach on just a couple of weeks ago in Stillwater. Early game on Saturday against Mike Gundy and a top 20 team at Oklahoma State.
I think this is one where Oklahoma State, and I think because of Mike Gundy, they'll be on their P's and Q's. They're not gonna take South Dakota State lightly. They know exactly that you're playing a national champ here. You're playing a national champ, and they're gonna come down to Stillwater ready to fight.
Teams like South Dakota State, North Dakota State, they play Colorado, Northern Iowa. Some of those schools have created a problem. Now, Oklahoma State's good, and they have a lot of people back. But this is not just a gimme. If they end up winning this game easily, I'll be very surprised.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be – I think they'll probably cover eventually because depth will probably win out. But I don't think this is – like some of these games, you can play your quarterback in the first half and then he can take his shoulder pads off. I don't expect that. I don't expect that to happen in this one. I think that they're going to – the starters will play longer in this one and any other of the FCS games that are going on in the conference.
Yeah, this is one of the tougher non-big name matchups in the entire country this weekend. And what I mean by that is that like they're not playing a blue blood by name, but they're playing a really good football team that could be very dangerous out of the gates if they come out sloppy and aren't playing, a good brand of football and maybe overlooking South Dakota State, which I don't expect because they're the FCS preseason number 1. Mm-hmm. They're really good quarterbacks back. They're running backs back. They've got some of their better players that have returned. So I think Mike Gundy knows what's what. Now, this is, a program, remember last year, that South Alabama game earlier in the year, like really it's amazing they recovered from that. But, I'd expect them to win this game and be locked in knowing that it's not just some gimme by any stretch.
Baylor at home against Tarleton, who played it last week. Now, I would think Baylor, who knows, after the Texas State game, everything's being said correctly, whatever else, with Finn at quarterback, etc. But playing a game the week before was brilliant by Todd Whitten, who's going to join us, I think, tomorrow. It helps. Doesn't mean you're going to end up possibly winning the game. I don't know. I until I see what I see on the field, I don't know what to expect. But that was a smart move by Tarleton State. But if this game isn't 38-13 or something like that, it will be awfully disappointing.
I was going to say, man, we're talking up this as though it should be competitive, and I really don't feel like it should be. I mean, early on, first quarter, sure. But beyond that, this should be a game that Baylor names their score by the end of it, in my opinion. You also do know Tarleton State's starting quarterback got hurt last week.
I saw that, yeah.
Missed the entire second half.
Yep.
So you take that into account. Not sure what his status is, but, they were the beneficiary of some turnovers last week. I don't think the score was indicative of exactly how that game went. But they got the win, and they got that little bit of, being able to get out there and play a game under their belt. So I do think that's a slight advantage. But ultimately, I think talent, home field, all that wins out. And I think Baylor should win this game very comfortably. And if they don't, then that would be alarming.
It would be incredibly alarming. I think they're alarming going into the season. All right, the final game of this day, Texas Tech. They open up at home against Abilene Christian. Texas Tech is playing a bunch of games at home. They got all the renovations and the spice and the amenities. They're fired up. Last year, of course, there was the Wyoming disaster. There was the Oregon game. This is different with that Abilene Christian football team. They can play, but I would think that they pretty much name their score.
It's the biggest spread last I looked in the entire conference out of 16 games. This is the biggest spread. So, they're unleashing this new look Jones AT&T Stadium, which I know they're very fired up about. You've seen all of the promotion and all of the pics and videos of it all the past few months because it's a game changer for them. And I think to be able to be out there and have a night game in Lubbock, it'll get dark, by the time that thing's over, and have the lights on and have the whole backdrop and, have an opponent that you're favored to beat by 30-plus points ought to make for a good debut game for Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders. I don't think they're going to be sweating too much, but very curious to see like how many catches does Micah Hudson have in his debut. There's a lot of exciting players we haven't seen, or we haven't seen it all in his case, or haven't seen a lot of, and haven't seen in a year. So I'm excited just across the board to see a lot of faces that we got to get a lot of last year, like an Ollie Gordon, but also the new guys like Micah Hudson. So yeah, very fired up.
Who among and I know there's 16 teams, who right now who has not really had much success? I'm talking about winning a conference championship. Who has more excitement this year? Is it Kansas? Is it Texas Tech? Teams that have not played.
I would say Kansas. For a team that hasn't won a conference title, yeah, that Kansas is the one to me.
West Virginia, I think, would be in that mix as well. I think they're pretty excited about the team they have this year. They beat Penn State. Oh, buddy, they're going to be off the rails entirely, which we'll obviously talk about that game in a different pod. But, Kansas is pretty high up there. I don't think it's Texas Tech, though. I think if you'd have said this last year, it would have been Texas Tech. But I think that it's become very clear they sort of changed their approach to kind of talking up the season and the team, if you will. It's just a little slight change in tune.
It's not as much, not bravado, but not it's quietly just let's get to the
It's a quieter confidence rather than being like a little bit louder about how good you think you're going to be. And I don't mean that negatively. I hope people understand what I'm saying there. But, yeah, they've kind of got a more reserved approach, although you can still tell they think they're going to be pretty good. And there's definitely some players they think they're going to be really good. Yeah, I think Tech is a team that's a little bit more reserved than a Kansas or even a West Virginia in terms of wanting to go grab that first conference title.
All right, we will do 4 more of the opening games tomorrow eventually as we get into – and there are some earlier conference games. Remember, in fact, next week Baylor's in Utah against the Utes, and so it'll cut down on some of these games.
So what do y'all think? I think it's an easy way to just kind of touch bases on everything, and we'll keep the same pods every week. We'll just like change around when we probably do them. But so Houston, BYU, Cincinnati, UCF, like since they came in together, they're together. The additions this year, the 4 Pac schools, they'd be together in a pod, and then this one just makes sense because of regionality.
Well, I put together, I tried to just kind of make some intriguing pods, and you guys
so
had
random.
Guys,
it was like UCF.
I felt like Biden.
Houston.
I just was gone. I mean, like I no longer had a chance to have a decision.
We wanted it to be manageable. Now I can see as this moves on into maybe next year, we can like do it by the standings or something like that. But just so we can training wheels.
Do we use the graphic?
Not today. I mean, like we'll get to the graphic.
You have nothing else to do.
Oh dear God!
I know you. We're all Okay, now when we come back, Ricky Thompson, Chris Venini, R.J. Maryland from SMU, and much more. We are 365 Sports. If you haven't, please click the like and subscribe button. And also, if you haven't subscribed and you have, or yes or no, please spread the word. We're here every afternoon, 3 until 6. And the great thing about YouTube and podcast, etc., is you then have your menu of what segments, and also with the triple option and Paul Catalina every day, Monday through Thursday from 1 until 2.
And we're here for free. So just hit that thumbs up or that subscribe button.
Yeah,
we're just here
right.
for free for you for whenever you want us.
Some people say subscribe, they start shaking. Do we need a debit card? No, it's free.
Just hit that subscribe
When we come
button.
back, we start a bunch of segments with a lot of things. College football. Thank you, of course, for being here when you are every day. We appreciate it. We never take it for granted. And this is 365 Sports. Baylor alumni engagement. Doug Furch, Paul Thorpe, good people. They help with the tailgate settings on game day, with what they have, bringing back various alums and et cetera to the games around McClain Stadium. And we have been a part of them when we've gone on the road. For example, they set up a lot of meet and greets, for example, and they have all sorts of stuff they can give you as a fan. We've been there with them in Kansas City at Big 12 basketball tournaments. We've been there in Oklahoma City when the women had their tournament there. We've been at bowl games throughout the country, from all the way down to Orlando, all the way to San Diego. That's what Baylor Alumni Engagement does. You can contact them if you want to be a part of a watch party and you're outside of Waco and you're not going to be able to get to the game, but you want to be, for example, one of our largest markets is Salt Lake City or Phoenix and Scottsdale. They can help you have your watch party, set it up for you, and spread the word. That's what they do. Baylor Alumni Engagement.
It's time to score big savings at the Kickoff to Savings event on GMC trucks at Richard Carr GMC. Take the winning drive with the Texas Truck MVP. GMC Sierra is the best truck on the road. Save $9,000 on 2024 GMC Sierra SLT models in stock with approved trade-in. Plus, qualified buyers get 1.9% financing and no payments for 90 days. See dealer for details. Save big and score your deal at the Kickoff to Savings event at Richard Carr GMC.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
Edward Jones Financial Advisors Josh Satterfield and John Maddox understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? When you invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Josh Satterfield, John Maddox, and Sean Carter, they will provide their time and experience to help you reach your goals. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Josh Satterfield and Sean Carter on Wycon Road off Bagby, and John Maddox on Sapphire Boulevard in Hewitt. Proud sponsors of Midway Panthers football. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Membership SIPC.
El Conquistador Restaurants are a very proud sponsor of the Midway Panthers, have been owned and operated by the Gonzalez family since 1969. El Conquistador is recognized annually as a local favorite with their fast and friendly service. Dine in or order takeout and enjoy your favorite Tex-Mex items as well as several traditional menu items. Catering is also available with 3 locations to serve you: Waco, Belmead, and Hillsboro. The Gonzalez family thanks you in Waco and the surrounding area for your continued support of 55 years in business. Go Panthers!
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Containing only 95 calories and 2.6 carbs.
Ricky Thompson, Baylor radio sideline analyst, former wide receiver, and then, of course, a part of the NFL with Washington, the Redskins, when that was who they were. We're joined by Ricky, Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, David Smoak. Ricky, thank you very much. I'm telling you this, and I mean this sincerely. I have no idea what to expect on Saturday. Do you?
Smoak, I really don't. I saw a couple of scrimmages, and scrimmages are so hard for me to judge because you've got, even if you got one-on-ones, you have an offense and a defense that have watched the other side. They know exactly what they're going to do. They know what the play calls are. And particularly when you have an offense that has maybe scripted the scrimmage, there's just no way to tell because you can't make any adjustments. You can't adjust the play call. You can't do a lot of things that particularly this spread offense will do when you can make adjustments. So it's just hard to tell. So I really just watch individuals and see what I think and judge it from there. And with all that said, I don't have a clue. I really don't. I think that Saturday is going to be so important to see. I do know that this team has a different attitude. I think that's clear. I think the approach will be different. I think the pregame approach will be different. I know the game time approach will be different with Dave running the defense, Spav running the offense. I'm really anxious to see how that dynamic works, and I think we'll learn a lot Saturday just from that. But I'm encouraged. I think there's a lot of talent out there, and I think here's my one thing that I do know. This is probably the fastest team we've had since at least 21, and maybe all the way back to some of the Browse era team. I know the last team Rule had had a lot of speed, but this team can run everywhere, and that's one thing we've been missing. You can't coach speed, and we do have guys that can run.
Ricky Thompson segment with us. JJ Joe will join us every other week as well from Baylor Radio, brought to you by Richard Carr Motors and also Alliance Bank. Paul?
Ricky, DeQuan Finn, named the starter, shouldn't be a surprise. He's super athletic. But how athletic will he have to be if that offensive line struggles? And especially considering last year in the early games where you thought the offensive line could kind of gel and push around some of these teams. If they don't do that against Tarleton State, isn't that like a red alert there?
Well, I think possibly it is. But remember, too, they have shuffled these guys back and forth positions, different guys in different positions. And I just think particularly as many new guys as there are involved in that offensive line, it's going to take 2 or 3 games to really get guys in the right spot. So I think some of that can be just getting guys in the right spot. Now, against Tarleton, whoever they have in there, they should be able to handle it. Now, that doesn't mean they will. We could have said the same thing about Texas State 2 years ago or last year, and that didn't happen. But I think talent-wise, these guys look really good getting off the bus, if nothing else. I'm telling you. They look like an offensive line, and I just think we get these guys in the right spot. But going back to Finn, again, can't coach speed. I think his reaction is really good. His arm is probably average, but it doesn't have to be a great arm in this offense, so that doesn't bother me. And the pure fact, to me, there's nothing worse on a defense than being 3rd and 9, having all your guys covered, and you got a quarterback that takes off and runs for 15. That is so disheartening. And with Finn back there, that's something we haven't had in a long time. And I think it's going to be a weapon, and I think Spav will use it. So in that regard, speed everywhere, and I'm encouraged by that. And you're right, no surprise he was named the starter.
Ricky, who's a name, and maybe it's DeQuan Finn, but who's a name or a unit maybe you've heard about this offseason that intrigues you most?
Well, you know what? One of them, I'm going to pick the receivers for one. And I think, again, we're going back to speed. We're going back to some of these transfers. Ashton Hawkins, for one, the dude is probably 170. He's got hands that look like Raymond Chester, a tight end I played with. They're huge.
Yeah.
And I've seen him make 2 or 3 one-handed snags. And I don't mean just reach up and stop it. I mean catch it like it's a baseball. Great hands, really good speed. And I think the combination of him and Monterey in that inside slot, number one, I think it's going to make Monterey better because he better play because Ashton's going to. And I heard him at one scrimmage coming back to the huddle, and he screamed, "Throw me the dang ball." Not the exact word he used, but he was saying, "Throw me the ball." And, man, I like that. It's okay. Get ticked off out there and want the ball in your hands. And I think he's a guy that we're really going to be excited about. And then, of course, you've got all the guys coming back. Hal Presley, Keytron, Jackson outside. And I tell you what, Trigg, this guy is a specimen. And if he gets his head around this offense, he is a guy that is 6'3", 6'4", 250, and they can play him in the slot in the spread. That's tough, guys. You put a 5'9" corner on that and see what happens.
Yeah, and it's also, if in fact there are some disruptions because of the continuity of the offensive line, to have a safety valve. And he's more than that. He's also a weapon down the field because the tight end is needed because of the fact that you may not have time to throw it. And if they don't, that will be disappointing, although, as you said, it's been kind of a big bowl of gumbo with different ingredients from different parts, from transfers to those who have come back to those who were also recruited. Ricky, you mentioned the demeanor. It's one thing to say it. It's another thing to do it. How do you know? Do you know? Do you know if someone's just saying it or when they actually truly do believe it?
Well, I don't think you know it till you see Saturdays. Practice is practice, what Allen Iverson said many years ago.
Oh, yeah.
But, you've got to practice and you got to do it well. I'm not making light of that. But practice doesn't count. Those catches in practice, you don't see those on any stat. You don't see practice tackles on the stat sheet. The only ones you see are the ones under the lights. And it's a different atmosphere. You can't recreate that speed in practice. I don't care what you do. So it's game day. And I think that's all that we'll know. And that's the only way we'll be able to tell is how these kids react during the game. But I just think there's an opportunity there that we've not had the last couple of years as far as maybe talent and the attitude. And I think they do need to win a couple of early games to get the feel of it. You got to win the Tarleton game. Utah on the road is going to be tough. You have to come back and beat Air Force and then go get after Colorado. You end that up 3-1 or so. There's no telling where these guys go after that because you've got some confidence and some wins in your pocket. So I think these first games are going to be very, very important.
Ricky, defensively, is the strength of the team in the secondary or is it up front?
Paul, I think it's up front. That may be the reverse of what some think, and I'm not saying that the secondary is not talented. Of course, you got Caden Jenkins back and Lemire and a lot of these guys that are talented and good players that have a lot of depth back there as well. But it just seems like these front seven guys, to me, look pretty talented. And if you've got a pass rush up there and the ability to stop the run and make these teams throw the ball, I think that's a huge advantage. I know we've struggled some there. So I think it's these front seven guys that have a chance to be pretty good.
Ricky, what was it like after all of the offseason work and, in the case of the NFL, training camps, but I guess training camps in college as well, but just what was that like to finally get into that first real game, that feeling for better and maybe even for worse because you realize, hey, we're not quite ready here, but what was that like from your standpoint?
Yeah, I think, Craig, it was always a relief. It was always so good to have camp over. That is such a grind, and I know that don't particularly have 2-a-days like some of us old guys did, but it's still a grind. It's hard, it's hot. It's a lot of work. You're going against your own guys. And I just think it's such a relief to get out of camp and get into a schedule and play other guys and really see where you are. And I think that attitude, and plus the other thing, remember too, that practice backs off. They try to get these guys' legs under them, and so it should be, and other than health issues, this should be as good as these guys have felt since the day they walked in first part of August.
Ricky, it's about to start. And you, of course, played the game at every level, high school, college, and pro. Can you describe whether that ever changed you from year to year, the opening week of the season, veteran, rookie, or whatever?
Yeah, I think so. I can go back to an NFL start of a season where we won one that we weren't expected to and ended up being a really good year. And even back in 74, a game that we lost, Smoak, everybody knows what it is. We went to Oklahoma, 50-point underdogs, whatever it is, and that ball game's 7-5 with 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. and you've got Joe Washington and all that crew on the other side, number one ranked team in the country. I think we knew after that we were pretty good. And going into it, you can hear you think you're good, you think you are, but I don't think you really know till it's over. But that game could have either sent that season down the tubes if we were gotten blown out. But as it were, it turned into a conference championship team that after that game, even after a loss, I think we knew we were pretty darn good. You play the number one team in the nation on the road and have them on the ropes late, that tells you something. So, I think that is important. And even with this team, Tarleton, I think if you go out and you blow them out, and I'm not saying we are, but if you do that early, I don't care who you're playing. That gives you some confidence. I just don't think there's any doubt it does. And I think we saw what the first game last year did to us versus going out and getting a big win like that. So Saturday's important, guys. I don't care who we're playing.
Ricky, thank you very much. Can't wait to the next time. We'll have JJ next week, and we'll have you the week of that, 1974, the memories against Air Force. Look forward to that and some of your memories of that great year you mentioned that won the Southwest Conference title. Ricky Thompson with us, former Baylor receiver and also sideline analyst for Baylor Radio on 365 Sports. Coming up next, Chris Venini from theathletic.com. Around the corner, SMU wide receiver R.J. Maryland. This is 365 Sports. All right, so Don Chimodor and Coffee Beans, I've been endorsing their product. It's a Waco company off of Valley Mills Drive, in between Richland Drive and also Valley Mills in the Town West Shopping Center. They have a 48-foot walk-in humidor, and I don't have to have a list of cigars in front of me to let you know. Padron, Cohiba, Rocky Patel, Artur Fuente, Romeo and Julieta, Macanudo, Ashton, My Father. These are some of the fantastic brands around the world, and they have them inside their 48-foot walk-in humidor. But with Josh and Cheyenne, about 2 or 3 times I went there. It's been about a month. I walked in the door. Josh took over along with Cheyenne, and he said, hey, I want to show you something. When you walk in the front door, there's all sorts of former boxes of cigars, like the containers, the cases. Walked me into the humidor, went off to the right. It's a big, long, almost like rectangular room, and he had a wall filled with Texas brands, Texas cigars. And then, of course, all the other ones I mentioned, he has plenty of them too. Warfighter is a cigar right out of San Antonio in Schertz, Texas. By the way, it's a terrible speed trap there. Combat Veteran owned and operated company. McAuliffe Cigars out of Dallas, smoke way above their pay grade. If you want a full, bold flavor cigar, they have Roma Craft cigars out of Austin. Rojas cigars out of Richardson, just, of course, on the northern side of Dallas. Delicious cigars named after your favorite Mexican food. Come smoke a whole enchilada if you want, or a breakfast taco. It's Don Chimodor and Coffee Beans. They also have fresh coffee beans. They have all you need from pipes, supplies, accessories, and more. Vita Dreams if you all struggle at night to fall asleep. Don Chimodor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center between Richland and Valley Mills in Waco.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Some say a dog is a man's best friend. But I tell you what, boys, you better think again. 'Cause there ain't nothing better than some cows, pigs, and turkeys too. I love to cover them in sauce down at Rudy's Barbecue.
Bring all your friends to Rudy's for some tasty oak smoke barbecue.
Next in line.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, 365 Sports in this Tuesday afternoon, the first full week of the college football season. Joined by Chris Venini, senior writer from theathletic.com, part of that great staff. Joins us with Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, David Smoak. Chris, thank you very much for your time. It's a melting pot, sir, of all these stories, even some that are coming back from the past because of Netflix and Connor Stallions, and, of course, so much changed in realignment. How do you sometimes try to juggle all of it to decide what you want to talk about one day or write about one day?
Just oftentimes it's just whatever happens that day. And, sometimes you have information on what's coming down the pike. I mean, a lot of us have spent the past month just in preseason mode, getting all our preview stuff done, doing a lot of research. And then, sometimes, there's a documentary coming out a couple days before games start, and you got to watch that too. So college football has really become a year-round sport over the last several years, and so there's usually never a downtime.
Chris, what are your thoughts on this UConn Big 12 potential marriage?
I mean, it's not surprising. And Brett Yormark has been wanting to do this for a while. He's been really interested in a lot of the basketball-heavy schools, and just been trying to find different ways to make it happen. And it appears one of those possibilities now is not bringing in the football program until the next television deal. That way, theoretically, you may not dilute the pie, so to speak, and everybody's still going to get the same amount of money. That is the thing that is always driving conference realignment. Can you make more or the same amount of money if we bring somebody into a conference? It's not always the case. Oregon and Washington are getting half shares in the Big Ten. SMU's not getting any TV money for 9 years in the ACC because they were desperate to just get into a conference. UConn, I think UConn's in a spot where, yes, the basketball team is elite. Women's basketball is elite. But as we move into this revenue sharing era, and you're in these conferences that are going to be paying out so much more money to their members than the Big East will be, does UConn need to kind of reconsider what that future looks like?
Chris, what were your thoughts on the, I don't know how much, stunner the right word for what happened last week, but a stinger for sure for the Yellow Jackets. What were your thoughts on them upending Florida State, especially after the very noisy offseason the Noles had?
I mean, I picked Georgia Tech to cover. I think Brent Keith's done a really good job there developing an identity, and they showed that. Florida State, I think you got to have a lot of concerns. The offense was absolutely not explosive like it was a year ago. Didn't throw the ball downfield very much. The defensive line, the front seven, which is supposed to be very good, was not. And Georgia Tech was getting chunk plays in the run game. So, it's week 0, week 1. We always overreact to it. They still have time to make the playoffs. They still have time to get things turned around. But Florida State's got Boston College on Monday night. You can't start 0-2 in the ACC, that's for sure. So now they're under some more pressure before that first game.
Chris Venini with us, theathletic.com on 365 Sports. What's a bigger story as far as a coach this year? DeBoer at Alabama or Ryan Day with the expectations at a place where you have to win no matter what?
Well, I think the story is Kalen DeBoer to start the year because people are going to want to see what Alabama looks like post Nick Saban. Ryan Day, we won't really have a good read of things really until that Michigan game. I mean, Ohio State can lose to Oregon and still win the Big Ten and make the playoffs. So there's less pressure early in the year. It's really going to be end of the year. Can they get over that hump and finally beat Michigan and move forward in the playoff? I've got Ohio State as my preseason number 1. I think they're the best team in the country, the deepest team in the country. So they've got to live up to that now at this point.
Chris, this week has a couple of Big Daddy games in it. One of them is West Virginia and Penn State. It's a big game for both squads, but I don't think the importance of it for a West Virginia team that's trying to prove that last year the 9 wins were not a fluke and that they can be better, and that Neil Brown, who lives with a chip on his shoulder right now, this would be the biggest win for them in years, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, of all the teams playing this weekend, I honestly think the most pressure to win, or at least the team with the most to lose, is Penn State, because it's the team that goes 10-2 every year, and if they do what they've done the last couple of years, would have been in the playoffs. But if you start out 0-1, lose to a West Virginia, a team I don't think is going to win the Big Ten in Penn State, suddenly the margin for error there is a lot less, especially when you've got Ohio State on the schedule again. So I think if Penn State gets upset there at West Virginia, there's going to be some panic in Happy Valley.
Chris, you did a big piece on the LSU Tigers. Our producer here, Garrett's a massive Bayou Bengals fan. Just what did you learn in your time looking at LSU, and what did that lead to you, I guess, feeling about them, I guess, as we head into the season?
I feel like LSU is a high ceiling, low floor type of team. I mean, last year's defense was terrible. The offense was great, but the offense lost all of its top playmakers and the offensive coordinator. So now you have questions on offense and a defense that has to be a lot better. But there's a lot of talent there. There always is. Garrett Nussmeier looks like a really good quarterback. The offensive line should be very good. Defense, you'd think, can't be worse. They've got a favorable schedule. They've got bye week. They've got most of their toughest games are at home, and they've got a bye week before them. So the schedule sets up pretty good. Brian Kelly's always had the breakthrough year in year 3. Central Michigan, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, that's always the big year for him. And so the question is, can that continue again at LSU?
When I was watching the game, Florida State and Georgia Tech, and I know there's a lot of changes that go on in football with rules, et cetera, but when they went to that 2-minute break before halftime, my head went scrambled. Like I knew it was coming. I knew they had changed that, but it was still something that I just wasn't ready for. Is this a monetary thing or what? What's the reasoning for doing this?
Chris, you there?
Yeah, sorry. I guess I was muted. The reason is it's supposed to help with two reasons. One, it's supposed to help with the flow of the game. We all hate that scenario where you get touchdown, commercial, kickoff, commercial, because there's a set amount of television timeouts that have to be done in every quarter. And so if there's a guaranteed one at the 2-minute mark of the second and fourth quarters, then you don't have to rush into them earlier in the quarter or try to fit them in anywhere you can. And so that's part of it. The other reason is a lot of the rules changed in the last 2 minutes, like the clock, like some other things. And so this would make it just simpler. The problem is the Florida State-Georgia Tech game was a problem because there was only 2 possessions in the fourth quarter. Georgia Tech scored a touchdown on the first play. Florida State had like an 8-minute drive. Then Georgia Tech had like a 6-minute drive, and the game was over. So we got the 2-minute warning, but we still had to fit in 2 more TV timeouts in the final 2 minutes. And so it became very annoying to fans, understandably. But it's more because it was a really weird game. 14 possessions, the fewest possessions in any game since 2020. So no, the TV timeouts are not, the 2-minute warning is not adding any TV timeouts. I think people will get used to it, and you'll notice it more when we have high scoring games and stuff like that in terms of going to commercial less frequently at inopportune times. It was just kind of a weird start.
Chris, Clemson and Georgia, obviously the biggest big name game of the week. Dabo Swinney and Kirby Smart are both not releasing depth charts in whatever juvenile gamesmanship that is. If Clemson takes it on the chin in this game, now they can very well win. I mean, this is Dabo Swinney team. If they take it on the chin, where does that kind of send them, and where does that put the ACC after week 1? Very much in flux, and that the 2 teams that people were kind of counting on are nebulous at best right now.
I mean, I'm expecting Clemson to take it on the chin, so if that happens, it's not going to change my opinion of them, and maybe that's insulting, but it's just kind of where Clemson's been at. Now, I would also say the expectations are low, so there's a chance to clear that bar. I mean, it's a 14-point underdog Clemson is. You keep that game close, you get into the fourth quarter, then maybe Clemson does have something here. But yeah, it would be a tough start if the ACC opens up with a Florida State loss, a Clemson loss. You got Miami, Florida as well. So some high-profile games in the ACC early on. I mean, the ACC champion is going to make the playoff. It's guaranteed. That's the nice thing about a 12-team playoff. But in terms of trying to get a second team in there, you would want to get off to a better start.
What do you think, Chris, might be the most misunderstood or not quite understanding the college football 12-team playoff? Is there something that maybe you've been asked or have been brought up that has been brought up that maybe people don't quite understand about it?
I mean, I wouldn't say understood. I just think you got to keep in mind that the top 4 conference champions get a bye. So you could have, 4 Big Ten SEC teams in the top 5 of the rankings. They're not going to be seeded 1 through 5. You just kind of got to get it in your head that most likely the Big 12 and ACC champions will be 3 and 4 seeds and get first round buys. So I think it's not necessarily misunderstood, but it's something people are going to have to remember and keep in mind when they're looking at the rankings.
Do you think that when they place those 12 teams, and again, we're just now for the first full weekend, that because of what you mentioned, that there might be the avoidance of SEC against Big Ten, at least for the first round, on what might happen depending on who wins?
Well, they say they're not going to purposely try to avoid rematches. That is it's just going to be what it is. If they happen to fall at that position in the rankings, that's what it is. Now, do I believe that? I don't know. I don't think. I imagine you would want to avoid first-round rematches. The NCAA tournament used to. I don't even know if it still does, but it used to have a no rematch policy for the first and second rounds, maybe, or something like that. I do think college football would be best to avoid that, but you're only ranking, 7 at-large teams. And so there's only so much movement you can really do.
Last thing, you brought up this note on your Twitter timeline about FBS, FCS, that people, some may not still understand it. I never had a problem with Division I and Division I AA. You brought that up. It made sense to me. I did, for a while, get confused, even though I do this for a living, with FBS and FCS. Why do you think they made the change? Just because of the playoff system?
I mean, it was like 2006. I was still in high school at the time. Honestly, I don't totally remember exactly what it was. I think that they just tried to. I don't know if they thought the term 1AA was insulting or something like that.
Yeah.
But to me, it just made everything more confusing, because then you would have people not realize that FCS is still Division I, you know. And now there is a championship in the bowl subdivision, so it doesn't even apply anymore. And it's confusing. Like, if to a casual person, they don't know what FBS means, because it's a nonsensical term. If you just say Division 1A, Division 1AA, most casual people know what those terms mean. And so I just was thinking that since there was some confusion over what people were calling Montana State during that game against New Mexico, I was like, Montana State's Division I. That matters. Now, this ultimately may not matter, because in a couple of years or 5 years or so, we may have some sort of breakaway, and it doesn't even ultimately matter. But the move to FBS and FCS, to me, I think was an absolute waste of time and just only made things more confusing.
Chris Venini, senior writer of theathletic.com. Chris, thank you very much. Have a great first full weekend of college football.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Chris Venini with us. Craigie's also, by the way, we had to run up against another break. If you look at his timeline, a bunch when it comes to pro wrestling.
Yeah, he does. I think he does a podcast, actually.
Yeah.
I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but yeah, he's gone and covered some of that stuff for The Athletic. Is envious the right word?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit. Yeah, I think it's the right word. Going covering WrestleMania as a media member or something like that
We could get you that.
No, it's not as easy as you think it is. We couldn't get press passes in Dallas.
We tried.
Yeah,
I called
years ago.
I called
WrestleMania.
I called Joe, our guy. I mean, he's not with the Cowboys anymore, but Joe Trahan. I called him and I was like, "Hey, WrestleMania's kind of messing with us here," and he's like, "I'll see what I can do," and then he couldn't do it.
I think I take too many showers for that crowd. I don't know. No, I mean I love that crowd, but there is that stigma that is actually real in some cases if you ever go to shows. But no, I'm just poking fun because I'm bitter about not getting an invite to see that.
I think that would be great, and we've even discussed you would have an absolute monster podcast if you did that.
Yeah, I'm going to make that happen.
I don't realize that there's a lot of those already. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know that many people who know more about it than you do.
You'd be surprised, like college football or anything else. I'm not trying to downplay myself too much. I'm just saying, like, I don't think it's like there's an empty hole that nobody's filled that I would suddenly magically, fill.
I just know that it would be really good and quality goes through, and every wrestler we've ever had on,
just stand back.
Well, I mean, the thing is that they get done and they're like, oh, well, that's not half the things I do are stupid. And, he was like, this was really good. And you ask questions about them, not about it.
Yeah, because I respect the art, and I know a lot more than most people who are basically could name The Rock and Hogan and maybe a couple of others, and that's about the extent. So yeah, Road Warrior Animals, I'd rather talk to him than Ric Flair, honestly, because at least he rest in peace to Road Warrior Animal, but he tells the truth or told the truth. Yeah. Rick, not so much, but no, Chris does a good job with that. Good for him, and much success hopefully awaits him.
All right, R.J. Maryland is around the corner, SMU wide receiver who was huge in their, holy crap, they better come back and win, and they did in their opening game over the weekend, and now, of course, officially a part of the ACC. R.J. Maryland next on 365 Sports. I lost my spot. Where am I at? Marcos Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marcos.com. You can go online, order for you to go pick it up yourself, or they will deliver. They have delivered to our studio. I've had Marcos delivered to my condo. They have 5 locations in Waco, including Belmead, which is closer to our studio, China Spring, and then also in Woodway, Hewitt, and in Robinson, Texas. Bob Mock is the owner, runs it, been in the pizza business throughout his entire life, learned from where he worked before, and then all of a sudden, he decided he wanted to be himself an owner and now has 5 stores in the Waco area. Marco's Pizza, the fastest growing pizza brand in America. Marco's Pizza with not just pizza, but also they have the pozzolis, and they also have wings, salad, soft drinks, and more. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
When it comes to me and my money, I know the way it should be. I need a partner I can count on. That's Genco and me. Genco is my credit union. They're always there for me. They're people I trust. They treat me like family. My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Bambi SQ, what is the number one reason or 2 or 3 reasons, Bambi, that people should contact House of Travel?
As a travel agency local here in Waco, we can take care of all your bookings, your payments, answer your questions, help you when there are issues or problems, things that may come up that you don't know what to do or how to fix them. People don't realize we don't charge a fee for what we do. It doesn't cost you extra to use a travel agent. We're just here. We get paid by the tour companies and the cruise lines to represent them. But you have an expert on your side that's here and local, and you have a name and a face to put together to help you with anything that you may need. Give us a call. We can price things for you. We can help you answer questions. We can make it simple, easy, and one stop.
Your knowledge of all the years you've done this and then spit it back to them or give them options?
It helps us to kind of know a date range, a budget, what your goals are and what you want to see and do on your vacation. And then that helps us to know what to look for, and we can narrow down and help you make the best choices for your vacation so you get the best value. You get exactly what you were hoping for, and making sure that it's taken care of with a carefree, easy, simple for you type vacation. I've been doing this for over 40 years. Every day I learn something new. I experience new situations and things that I can help take care of for people, whether it's just making sure you get the best deals and find the best vacations, or whether it's to solve that problem, like you've got a flight that's being canceled and you don't know what to do. There's weather coming up. Should I cancel my trip next week because of the hurricane? Those are things that we take care of and you don't have to worry about. You've got somebody that you can rely on that you know is an expert, knows what we're doing, have been doing this for a long time, so that you're not questioning, okay, does the person on the other end of the phone really understand what I'm asking or know how to find those deals? You've got an expert, and we are here to take care of that.
For more information, go to houseoftravelwaco.com.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
SMU opened up their season in Nevada, in Reno, and down to the wire, and R.J. Maryland, Mustangs wide receiver, had himself a game. 162 yards, 8 catches, scored a touchdown. Unbelievable fourth quarter, 4 catches, 116 yards in the go-ahead score with just over a minute left in the game. He joins us on 365 Sports. RJ, thank you very much. How much did Rhett Lashley, from the time the game ended until even today, remind you guys of how you must be locked in?
RJ Maryland.
We lost him for a second. Okay. RJ.
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
I'm sorry. How much since that game ended has Coach Lashley and others reminded you guys that you must be locked in from start to finish?
Yeah, it
Paul?
Oh, hold on. All right.
Seems like we're having
Be able to
connection.
finish the game.
RJ, let's do this again. Paul, you got him?
Yeah. Hold on. Let me call him back.
All right, we're getting interrupted on that. But he had with a minute and 18 seconds left of the game, they ended up beating Nevada 29-24. He was also named the ACC Receiver of the Week with that game against Nevada. And RJ, Maryland, let's start this again. Sorry about that. RJ, how much have you guys been reminded about being focused from start to finish? Not that you weren't, but that was a reminder and you were able to get away with the win.
Oh, yeah. Coach Lashley just told us, we have to be locked in the whole game. And even before the game, really just can't underestimate teams. And obviously, you just got to be mentally strong to finish the whole game.
RJ, are you a wide receiver or a tight end or both?
I'm a tight end. I believe I'm a tight end. I just have receiver skills, too.
RJ, what was that like to start, and how difficult was that to start the season on the road? Did that add to a little bit of just, knocking the rust off, but also being in foreign territory? Did that make things a bit more difficult?
No. Honestly, I like road games sometimes, just being in that evil environment. It just brings a sense of brotherhood together.
Obviously you had the game-winning catch and you had a monstrous fourth quarter. Was some of that open earlier in the game, it just did not work, or did some things change with what you guys were doing?
Well, yeah, I didn't have the best first half, and the whole team didn't have the best first half. We were just kind of playing slow. But then once, we got in a rhythm and just obviously got me the ball a little bit more, obviously just I can get in a rhythm and just really just show my talent.
Now, your dad was the first pick in the NFL draft for the Cowboys years ago. He's a defensive lineman, big dude. Now, you're a different kind of big. How much defensive lineman comes out in you in your style of play as a tight end, even though you're fleet of foot and you have those wide receiver skills? Do you feel like there's a little bit of defensive line attitude in you just genetically?
I'm not sure. Maybe a little bit of the defensive lineman comes out, maybe just through DNA, I guess. I don't know.
RJ, what's it like to just be around this team? What was the offseason like for you guys, and especially with the big move to the ACC coming off of a great year last year? Just, how would you describe just sort of the momentum that the SMU football program has right now?
Oh, yeah, we got a lot of momentum, just everything from the new facility. It's amazing to be in the ACC and just show our talents because we on the Power 4 stage because we know we belong. And, I'm so happy for the program and where it's going.
Well, you belong. Was there anything that was extra on your shoulders knowing you had to perform that way, or was it the same any type of you're going to play a game, you're playing a game?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's just football, and the sport we love to play. And so, I don't want to think of it like it's a huge, tall task that I have to do, but it's just football, and we all love playing football.
Can you try to describe and we've had your AD, Rick Hart, on, we've had Rhett Lashley on, but can you try to describe just what it's like around the campus with this being the first year in the ACC?
Around campus, yeah, it seems pretty lively. I remember when I first got here, back in 2022, obviously, we were in the American Conference. People weren't as excited for football. Basically, the students weren't as excited for football. But joining this new conference, see a lot more students in SMU football gear, and just the whole athletic program is just everybody's super happy to be in the ACC.
What's it like playing with Preston Stone, and what kind of quarterback is he? What kind of leader is he, and the rhythm that you guys have?
Oh, yeah, he's a great leader. Preston's a great quarterback, and I love playing with him. He can just make anything happen out of nothing, and then also he can just sit in the pocket and just throw good balls too. And so it's great to have a great quarterback with you.
What was it like at halftime in that game up in Reno? What was everyone maybe a little bit frustrated, or is everyone calm knowing there's another half? What was it like among the players?
Well, yeah, obviously we were a little frustrated, but we know you can't win a ball game until it's the fourth quarter. You could be up 40 or down 40, but the game is always won in the fourth quarter. And so, yeah, we know we're a team that we finish strong. And so we've always finished strong. So, yeah, we weren't too worried.
How much momentum do you feel like? It's one game. You've got a long way to go, plus the ACC. You've got TCU, all the things that are on your schedule. But can you try to describe just the adrenaline of winning that game, getting the hell out of Reno, and getting set up for the next game?
Yeah, just obviously the game was rough, but shoot, as long as we got on that plane 1-0, that's all that mattered.
Can you give us the play call on the 34-yard game-winning touchdown catch?
Yeah, the play call is just we saw man coverage, and it was just a little inside fade to me, and just use my speed because I got it, and just go make a play out there.
For you, what is when you see since you're so tall and lanky, when you see a guy that is, they're trying to cover you with a guy who's 5'9", 5'10", do you see that? Do you have to check your mind and make sure you don't see that as an automatic advantage because that guy might be feisty? Or how do you approach it when you see different guys and study guys week to week?
So yeah, obviously you study the film and just see how they guard, and then you just make your decision off that. And then whenever you're pre-snap, you see if it's man coverage, zone coverage, and then you can just make your decision off that, and then you just go make a play. That's really it, just making plays.
Is there anything else that, because of the ACC, that you guys prepare differently, talk differently, think differently, anything from that?
Obviously, the mindset, we're going to a harder conference, so we have to be ready, but we're going to prepare the same way as we did, and we're going to prepare the same way for any opponent.
So when was the first time, what was the reaction the first time you ever actually on tape, video, whatever, saw your father's highlights?
Yeah, my dad's highlights. I remember one time I was going through tapes and I saw some highlights of him. First thing I noticed was really just the film looks terrible. It looks all fuzzy. Can't see anything. So I couldn't even really see what was going on.
He could mix it up, man. I mean, just think about it. Number one pick, as Paul mentioned, in the NFL draft. I got a chance to interview him a few times at training camps and elsewhere, and just also a kind of a lovable character. I mean, he really, really was. But, I mean, when the lights came on, he then had a focus that you're supposed to have. Do you have any of that with you, too?
Yeah, obviously, whenever you put on those pads and put the helmet on, you turn into a different person. You just get really locked in on the game, and, that's what I love to do.
Smokey, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but when Russell Maryland got drafted, people were convinced the Cowboys were going to draft Rocket Ismail, right? Because he was there. And then Jimmy Johnson said, no, I want this big defensive tackle that I know really well, and I can find another Rocket Ismail. And Rocket Ismail went to the CFL. It was such a
And eventually
did it? Crazy story.
Didn't he eventually come back and play with the Cowboys? Yeah, he did. Yeah. Well, and that's what and I know we're talking about you, RJ, but that team that Dallas built was built with guys that off that defensive front and the speed and the no different than what they had at Miami and why they dominated in college football. It was fun to watch. But what is one of the one or two things that when you got into competitive sports as a young kid and throughout high school, South Lake Carroll, and now at SMU, any particular advice your dad gave you?
Oh, well, my dad, he just always tells me to work hard. Just have that hard, and because that's going to take you far in life with anything, no matter if it's school, sports, or whatever. So just working hard, always cream rise to the top,
Last game, the last thing, the game was in Reno, and obviously was one hell of a fight with Nevada. Was it kind of surreal being up there in Reno to open the year, and in a way just kind of a fog initially?
Honestly, the city was beautiful. Being out there in the mountains, I liked watching it because I remember during near halftime, you could look out on a mountain and it was snowing on the peak. You see how the peak was white at the top, and then whenever we came out, the sun came out and all the snow melted. And so honestly, Reno was a really beautiful city.
Have you ever been in a mountain, like up in a mountain range or anything like that growing up?
Not really. We went to Albuquerque last year, and there's some mountains over there, but Nevada had some great mountains.
Yeah, they got those like you said, snow-capped tips that are just gorgeous in the distance. RJ, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Good luck moving forward against Houston Christian. Congratulations on the award from the conference and also for winning the game, and we'll be watching you along the way. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
RJ Maryland, ACC Receiver of the Week, caught the game winner against Nevada. And I got to tell you, there were a couple of things that happened that needed to happen. I thought they were dead to rights. Yeah. I kind of just thought they were. I could not watch the game. Was that the one on the CBS Sports Network?
Sports Network, well, yeah.
For some reason, I couldn't watch it. I know I have that, but you just felt like they were always going to eventually –
I didn't have anything scientific leading me to that. Sometimes you just have your gut feel. I just felt like SMU was a better team, and they were just rusty and not very good. They were mistake-riddled out of the gates, and I think that just ultimately, like, they're explosive enough that if they kept it close enough, then they were going to have an opportunity at the end, because you know how teams are. Like, Nevada made a huge mistake, and they were in a position to capitalize on the huge mistake, and I just felt like that was kind of coming. And like I said, nothing scientific. I wasn't on Twitter like predicting it, but I thought that them being behind and losing that first game was like just too good to be true, honestly. You know, with Florida State, like all the offseason of talk about SMU and the ACC, I was just like, there's no way they're gonna lose this game like FSU did. But yeah, I mean, credit to Nevada for taking them on a thrill ride and nearly derailing them right out of the gates as far as their big expectations for this season. And I think it's just, you're thankful as a SMU fan that they were able to just find a win and pull out a win and move on to the next one.
Yeah, you see teams that aren't supposed to be in the game. With all due respect, Nevada's had some nice teams along the way, but and it's like the light comes on just in time, and then all of a sudden you get a break and you take advantage of it. You have to. That would have been an absolute disastrous loss, but they got the game done.
Nevada could have sealed that game. One more drive, or don't fumble right near your goal line backed up. Things like that, and they didn't execute towards the end as well as they could have, and that's the difference between getting a big upset in front of a home crowd to start the season and having this tease of nearly being able to pull that off and unfortunately having to go home on the losing side of things. But it was an entertaining game, and I think that double whammy of FSU and SMU losing right out of the gates, especially with all of the ACC talk, would have just been – you had Georgia Tech, obviously, but still, that would have been a not-so-good weekend. And still isn't somewhat, since FSU is one of your big contenders. But, yeah, SMU able to get that first one, and we'll see if – they can – I mean, here's the thing with SMU. That was a tough game. This month, they got a couple of Big 12 schools on the schedule.
BYU
they got
TCU and TCU.
Yeah, TCU and BYU. They got Florida State in about a month from now. So if they can get through this first half, that second half is nothing, basically.
Yeah.
This first half of the season is by far the harder of the two halves of their schedule. With FSU, TCU, I know BYU's not expecting to be good, but it's BYU. Like, they can beat SMU on any given day and vice versa. But, this first 4 or 5 weeks for SMU is going to be like the real indicator, and it's going to be really interesting.
Every game they play is going to be a home game the rest of the next
And there's
4
that
games.
as well, yep. Yeah. And that's a wrinkle to their schedule that I think I remember reading that or seeing that back in the springtime. But then I think after Saturday, I was looking at their schedule, like, when is that TCU game exactly? And I was like, oh, geez, they don't ever leave Dallas.
No.
Like, they sit there for like 5 weeks straight.
Yeah, they have Houston Christian, BYU, TCU, and Florida State back to back, all at home. They then go on the road 3, and I just did something, and I'm going to admit it every time I do. I saw the game at Stanford and went, why would they have a non-conference game in the middle of the year? And, of course, it's no longer that with the ACC, Cal, Stanford, and SMU.
It's actually 3 Big 12 teams: Florida State, TCU.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But at Louisville, at Stanford, at Duke that's a wild, they got a bye week in there, and they actually have 3 because they played week 0. But they've got a bye week in that. But that is a weird, month of travel.
Louisville, Kentucky, California, and then North Carolina. Yeah.
It's like their home and away schedule didn't get mixed together. It's almost like they just have all their home games in a row and then all their road games in a row. I know it's not like that, but there's these blocks that don't really exist on most other people's schedules of a bunch of road games in a row and a bunch of home games in a row.
It's an election year. And that is like the election, like a presidential candidate schedule where like you watch the news. It's like today so-and-so's in Kentucky. And then tomorrow it's like he's in San Francisco. And you're like, dear God.
Yeah. No, I did not know it was an election year. I haven't been
that's
paying
what
attention.
they've got. They got the election year schedule of.
When we come back, Craig's Off the Radar would normally be at 4:45, but that was when RJ was available. Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, Hall of Famer John McClain, Paul's Top 5. Much more to get to. This is 365 Sports. And Pioneer Stew and Pipe. 1943, they opened up their doors, and then back in December of 2022, they opened up their unbelievable, gorgeous facility that's on Loop 340 and Highway 6, just a little bit east of I-35 in Waco. Location may have changed, but their values have not. A handshake still means something. Always has. That's how they have been able to be in business for 80-plus years. Person over player. You remember Dave Aranda used to mention that. That's the same type of philosophy, except they have been very, very good year in and year out at Pioneer Steel and Pipe. Standard long lengths of tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat. Now shorter lengths available, making it more convenient for you. The material is already cut, so you don't have to go there to get the material and go somewhere else to cut it. It is done for you. New 2,500 square foot showroom with over 1,000 new products in stock. Welding supplies, hardware, do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you're a contractor professionally or a weekend warrior. They are, again, the standard of year in and year out. 80-plus years in business, Pioneer Steel and Pipe. PioneerBoys.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC an equal housing lender.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year, it's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. For those just joining us, it is a segment on Tuesdays and Thursdays at around typically 4:45, depending on a guest. Each of those days where we take a look at a grab bag of stories from around the world of sports that are a little bit out of the normal scope and conversation. And so let's dive right in. And this time of year is the best because there's a melting pot of different things ongoing, whereas the last couple of months it's basically been baseball and Olympics, a little bit of basketball sprinkled in. Now we've got the NFL fast and feverishly approaching their season. Got MLB down the home stretch. Even the NBA is about to start back up, boys, here pretty soon.
Yeah.
So it's about to all collide into the best part of the year. But let's get into the story that I knew the entire time we were going to be talking about eventually. But those Dallas Cowboys reporters just made you fear for your life that CeeDee Lamb's not going to get done, guys. He's not at training camp. The season's approaching. There's not going to cut a deal. They got the deal done. Yesterday, it became official. CeeDee Lamb is going to remain with the Dallas Cowboys on a 4-year, $136 million deal. Second highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Adam Schefter added $38 million signing bonus. You as a longtime follower of the NFL, when you hear $38 million signing bonus, and you remember like reporting on Troy Aikman's contract back in 1990, whenever, when you hear $38 million signing bonus, does your head just almost explode?
It still does. But now it's to the point where it's silly
this
money.
Is nothing.
Monopoly.
It's like Mahomes or somebody.
Aikman's was a $10 million deal, and I don't remember the bonuses. I know Aikman, and then of course Emmett, and eventually others that started to get the big chunks of money. I don't even know how to go.
It's just such huge money. It's crazy. So yeah, $38 million signing bonus. He gets that right away. That's the largest ever given to a wide receiver. That amount of money in a signing bonus. So he is inked up now with the Cowboys. I know that there were at times reasons to maybe be skeptical, but come on, guys. Like, this was never not going to happen.
No.
And I understand the media has to play their role. And I'm just thankful that this is over with so that we don't have to hear any more, in my opinion, fake fear about this not happening. But I will mention one more thing. The 11th wide receiver to sign a major contract extension, which was part of the storyline, was that everybody was signing, and it just put the pressure more and more on Jerry Jones.
He could have been the second.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing that bothers me. Not that they signed him. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the salary cap. I care that the Cowboys figure it out, because everyone else, they have these times where you're going to run up against the cap because you took some risks and you went for it. The Cowboys are just stuck in this zone of like almost going for it, and then like they keep their guys and give them big money, and that's good. And they're in this weird spot, and it drives me nuts. They could have done this months ago and saved all this drama.
Yeah,
they could have. They
could
could
have been in camp the entire time.
In camp the whole time.
They wanted. They love that attention.
They love that drama.
They love
man.
it. Like, and that's the problem. Jerry likes the thrill of it, and it's not really all that thrilling. And it's certainly not thrilling for the guys on the team who want CeeDee back. But I'm more excited about the fact that we can just watch him play football as opposed to having to see a whole SportsCenter segment dedicated to an Instagram post that he made of Tobey Maguire.
You still watch SportsCenter?
I mean, people send them to me. So I watched it. And so I was like, what? And then that segment goes, well, this means that he's probably going to ask the Cowboys for a trade, and then here's some teams, and they have to create a segment of like, well, CeeDee Lamb would be this and this, and they could trade him here. And I'm like, guys, Jerry is not trading CeeDee Lamb. He's not like a malcontent like T.O. or someone like that, or Odell Beckham Jr. Like, this is a dude who loves being a Cowboy. He's in the perfect spot for him. He just had the best season of his life. He's just waiting to cash in, and Jerry's drawing this out. It is more simple than you think. He's going to get his money, and then Jerry's going to look dumb for not doing this earlier.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the story.
And he does. And like, Jerry's as much as guilty as anybody when it comes to the drama and the manufactured drama and the deadlines and all that comes with that made this a bigger story than it ever needed to be. So the story now is just what it always should have been, which is CeeDee Lamb signed his very well-deserved contract extension and now is very well paid and will be for a long time in a Cowboys uniform. And I'm glad to see that. As an Oklahoma fan, also love the guy. He was pretty great and had some giant moments. Remember the Texas game, which seems like it was just yesterday. But yeah, he's a great player, and I'm glad to see him get his money finally. So now we get to move on to the
don't even
Dak
bring it up.
Prescott.
Oh my God.
Sorry, just the thought of listening to more Dak contract talk, really, that will put me to sleep entirely, because CD it was like, it's not like this is an every year thing. With Dak, it feels like it's almost every year thing. So now Dak is on the clock for his new deal, and I'm sure that will be all nice and clean cut, and there will be no drama whatsoever.
Dak is only a story if the Cowboys and he are really bad this year. Like, it's only a story during the season if they are really bad, and you're like,
that's
well,
legit, yeah.
I mean,
because I think at this point he's been around long enough.
If they're really bad and he's really bad on the team,
well, he's not going to be bad.
Well, yes, I know, but like that's the only reason it's a story until the first day of the league year and the Cowboys still don't have him signed. Then that's a story.
Yeah, they've tagged him. They can't do it again.
Yeah,
they either give him a contract or he becomes an unrestricted free agent, and somebody. And maybe it will be the Dallas Cowboys, but somebody will give him
I think if he gets to that point, it's probably over.
Well, yeah, you let a guy walk.
Because Jerry doesn't ever do that.
Because obviously Trey Lance with the 5 interceptions.
But he's a free agent too.
I know.
I've heard good and bad there with the whole Trey Lance thing. I think that's just kind of been the story of his NFL time, in San Francisco and now in Dallas. And I don't know, there's some people that really believe that you just got to give him time, but I know that's something you hear every summer about some quarterback somewhere. So there you go. CeeDee Lamb, 4 years, $136 million. Again, second highest paid non-quarterback NFL history. And there you go with that. So he now sits number 2, I believe, in terms of like the total value of a contract. Justin Jefferson still with the biggest wide receiver deal with the Minnesota Vikings, but CeeDee up now near the top. I don't know if you guys realize this, but sticking with the NFL for another brief moment here, but cuts are occurring as they whittle down to 53-man rosters and absolutely no time whatsoever to go over every team and every round of cuts for every team, but seeing a lot of interesting names. Unfortunately, I just saw John Rice Plumlee's name, former UCF quarterback, got cut by, I believe that was the Pittsburgh Steelers that I was on. Yeah, it was the Steelers. And there are some interesting names. Siaki Ika, former Baylor defensive lineman, got cut by the Cleveland Browns. He made absolutely no dent whatsoever in the NFL, and the way that they used to talk about him makes a lot more sense in hindsight of how big and strong and talented he was, but it just felt like something was always not quite right, as maybe like the motor or the desire. I don't know, but he is very short-lived when it comes to this Cleveland Browns tenure.
What's it been, 2 years?
It's been a couple of years, and I hardly, if ever, saw the field.
That's what makes me appreciate Jerry Ball's even more old school, but Willie, who am I thinking about? The big defensive lineman that played at New England, it was a nose tackle.
Rofe?
Yeah, no, that's an offensive tackle for the Saints. Paul, who's the big Sam Adams? Guys like that, because those are.
Will Fork.
Let's go to Reggie White if we're going to go big time defensive lineman.
White was such a really.
Gilbert Brown.
I'm talking about the inside fire hydrants. Yeah,
okay, big boys,
I'm telling you, it's either you are you're gone, or you end up playing for 10 or 12 years. There are certain guys, grown ass men, that just seem like they can do that, and it's just such a physical position, and you got to be locked in. Not saying that he wasn't, but that is a hard position to play.
No, it is, and I don't know. I'll leave him, to leave it up to him to tell his story ultimately. But it seemed like there was like the way Dave Aranda used to talk about him. It always seems like there was like some little mystery that we were trying to solve about why he wasn't as dominant as he should be, or why things weren't going a certain way. And then he locked in during that Big 12 championship run. Had himself a hell of a year, but I don't know. I mean, maybe you get drafted and then you just get happy once you get that contract, or maybe you're just not good enough. That's the story for a lot of cuts as well. And so either way, he was a name that I noticed earlier today. William Bradley King, who was formerly around here for a year when the portal first opened, from Arkansas State originally. He got cut as well today by the Washington Commanders, I believe that it was. Now that I'm
who's that?
William Bradley King is who I was saying that got cut earlier today by the Patriots. Actually, Bailey Zappi cut by the Patriots, former Western Kentucky quarterback who really thrived with Zach Kittley before Kittley went over to Texas Tech. And there's some teams that have cut 30 guys, and there's some teams that have cut like a couple guys and haven't made it official. But it's just interesting to always go through this every year and just see the number of like college football all-stars that, either aged out now at this point or, just aren't elite enough to cut it at the NFL level. And there's a ton of those names. Deontay Foreman got cut. He's had a long career, though, at this point as a running back. But he got let go by the Browns. So I don't know. That's going on today, and it means that the NFL season is almost here, and they're getting down to the nitty-gritty of finalizing the 53-man roster. So I am looking forward to that. You want your head to spin?
Go to Twitter and put NFL cuts in that little bar, and, I mean, you'll know more.
I know. That's what I'm trying to do.
You can – no, I'm just saying you could learn more in about 2 or 3 minutes of scrolling. You have to go to all the various pages. But, yeah, and the other thing, guys are going to get cut. Then teams are going to look around to see who else got cut, make some roster decisions, and then eventually they get that 16-man practice squad that used to be 8 and was 4, I think. Now it's 16, so a lot of these guys are still going to be at NFL headquarters.
Yeah, a good slice of them will be. A lot of guys will probably be moving on to the UFL here pretty soon, or whatever else. Will Greer cut by the Philadelphia Eagles. That was just another name that came down that I saw that's of familiarity. Sam Hartman cut by the Redskins. Michael Wiley of Arizona running back. Martavis Bryant. I mean, it's a who's who of college stars.
They were just trying to hit
by the
something.
way, Washington has cut. They had 7 draft picks in 2023. Only 2 of them, the first and second round picks, Emmanuel Forbes and whoever the safety was they drafted in the second round, are the only ones that stayed on the roster. The other 5 have already been cut.
Why don't you
a year
bite
later.
me? Well, that's why you are not very good. Now, I don't know about 2024. How many of them made it? You surely hope that at least 5 of them.
Quan Martin, who you're talking about?
Yeah. Yes, Quan Martin.
Quan Martin and Emmanuel Forbes. Yeah,
hey,
their
Garrett,
first 2
you can
picks.
just nuke Paul's microphone.
No, let's talk about what happened last Saturday in Ireland.
State.
That. I just thought the way that Georgia Tech started that game. No, we've done enough of that so far. And look, both of our teams will probably lose this weekend as a result of all the trash talking that we've done. That's the thing that you set yourself up for. This time of year. So it can't go too hard. But so anyways, NFL cuts, anything of interest for you from a Dallas Cowboys perspective or Florida State even perspective?
No, I mean, I saw that Aniyah Smith didn't make the Eagles, which I was kind of surprised about, but he might be a guy who has to, hop around in practice squads for a little while. He was a stud at A&M. I think eventually he'll be an NFL player. Cowboys, no. Willie Harvey was a guy they signed from the UFL at linebacker who they liked, but I think he's a little bit he was a little bit lost out there in the scheme, so he got cut. Outside of that, nothing really surprised me with the Cowboys. I mean, they're bland. What's exciting is they drafted an offensive lineman named Josh Ball a few years ago who was at FSU, and then he was dismissed from the team, and then he played out his college career somewhere else, and he was not good. And he had to play several times, and I kept thinking, you can't find another guy that, somebody at the Cowboys clearly saw something in him, and then finally – he had 4 years in the NFL, and he beat my prediction by 3.9 years. He was released
I saw that
today. And I was like, I don't understand why he keeps making it, and you guys can't find just anybody who has NFL experience to put in this, tackle spot.
Lyle Collins cut by Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, you can spend a lot of time going through so many names. I just saw a second ago James Lynch, who used to play at Baylor. He got cut by the Minnesota Vikings.
Really? Yeah.
He was hurt all of last year, and his contract was coming up, I think. So that was kind of a writing on the wall, but still just to see that. Hopefully he catches on somewhere else. But, yeah, it's just a trip down memory lane, and I think maybe one of the most surprising cuts was Lewis Sine because he was just a first-rounder 2 years ago. He was 32nd overall pick. Vikings cut him, so he lasted less than 2 years.
And he had a compound fracture his first year. Yeah.
And had the injury, and then, here he is a year after that and is already out of the league. That's just not what you think is going to happen when you're going 32nd overall and you're living your NFL dream that less than 2 years later you're going to be out of the league.
You got a pretty good contract signing bonus.
Yeah, I mean, that's
but I saw a
grace.
couple of legacy names that makes me feel old. Frank Gore Jr., Brett Ripien. Brett Rippin from Boise State.
If you got that wrong as a Redskins
former
fan.
Redskins Super Bowl MVP, and Gore, of course, one of the great running backs of all time. Right. I just saw a couple of legacy names. Yep.
One final NFL note, I suppose, is that the Washington Commanders are renaming their stadium. They've got a new advertising deal. It's been known as FedEx Field for a very long time, since 1999, as a matter of fact, but they had made the choice that they were going to end the relationship. FedEx made that decision and let the Commanders know that. a few months back, and so they were on the hunt for a new deal, and it will now not be known as FedEx Field, but Northwest Stadium, which sounds very generic, but it's actually named after Kim Kardashian and Kanye West's kid. No, not really. It's actually named after Northwest Federal Credit Union. So they're going with just Northwest
a lot of financial
Stadium.
institutions of some sort.
Yeah, a lot of credit unions.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see the coat of paint they've slapped on everything. It was funny to watch some clips from Josh Harris's press conference, and people were asking him like, "Oh," and he's like, "Look, these are the things that we can improve right now." But
and one of those was not returning to the Redskins.
Yeah.
He's already made clear they
Yeah.
are not going to go back to that specific name.
Yeah, I actually think if you asked him what he wanted to do, they would.
Yeah.
Because he grew up a fan of that team, and most people that are fans of the team don't care. The problem is that it's not a fight that they can win.
Right.
So
it's not really their choice.
I still have a few of the. I still have about 15 to 20 either old T-shirts or when they've done something. I have them in the closet. I'm not going to get rid of them, but yeah, I have a Commanders T-shirt that I
mean,
wear.
that's like, it's. I just think what gets lost is that I certainly understand both sides of it. I think though, from just people who grew up Redskins fan, it wasn't like you thought of the name that way ever until it started to become that political talking point. And I think there's a lot of. I think if you polled the majority of Washington Commanders fans, I think a really, really high percentage across the board, no matter what background, part of town, whatever, part of the country, I think they would love to go back to the old name. But I know that that's not in the cards, so he's made that known as well when he was asked about it this past weekend. But he did, to Paul's point, spend a lot of time talking about all the upgrades that they're doing around that stadium while also pursuing a brand new stadium up in that area, but that's still a work in progress at this point. So for now, it'll be Northwest Stadium, and they'll put a coat of paint on it and hopefully make the stands a bit safer to walk through and around.
I'm plumbing, I remember watching that interview with Rich Eisen and actor Jeffrey Wright, and he and Josh Harris grew up and went to camp together. So he's known him forever. He's a season ticket holder. And so he goes to this. He got invited to this event when they bought the team. And he was like, "Look, I've got so many ideas. I'd love to be involved, help you, hype up the team." And he's like, "Absolutely." And so then he's talking about, how about here for a stadium? And how about, he's like, "Whoa." He's like, the plumbing in the one we have that we have a lease in doesn't work. Right. So I have to get 700 plumbers to a stadium to get the plumbing to work again. That's how bad and aloof Daniel Snyder was. And I can't imagine coming to your owner and going, "Hey, I know this isn't like a big thing or signing a quarterback, but none of the crappers work at the stadium."
I bet his did.
I bet his did. But no, it's just nice to have somebody competent running the organization who you feel like actually has a game plan and is doing things for the fans.
And there you go. They're doing it for to try to reestablish the relationship
with your
and
customers.
loyalty with your customers.
And I want to move on from this because we got to go. But if you notice, some of the pictures from the stadium, the hallways, they've painted Darryl Green in the old uniform, and they're not calling themselves that, but they're not going to not pretend like they didn't wear those uniforms.
You can't take
and so
John
they've done a lot
Reagan's-
of graphic work of bringing back the old legends and putting them on the walls and doing so that's the kind of detail that he's putting into, just revamping the place before they inevitably try to build the next bajillion-dollar stadium somewhere up in the D.C. area. And final note here, it's time for TV ratings again, folks. I'm not going to get into the mud-slinging part of, the Big Ten had more ratings than the SEC. I don't care about that. But I do think it's interesting to just look at the biggest, most-watched games every week. And so, obviously, we had a small plate of games
Montana State, New Mexico.
No. Florida State. Did you hear about what they did this past week?
They played 8 million.
No, not anywhere close. Florida State, Georgia Tech from Dublin averaged 4.99.
Still a good number.
Million viewers, so just on the cusp of 5 million viewers. Largest week 0 since Miami and Florida played in prime time back in 2019 on ESPN, which got a little over 6 million viewers. So best number in about 4 years. Obviously, there's not a lot of comparisons because there's so few games, but it did increase 40% from
good
Notre Dame and Navy in Ireland a year ago. So there was actually a lot more interest on this game in terms of about 1.5 million more viewers for that one. So, 4.99 million. And actually it was cool to see Florida A&M and Norfolk State in the MEAC SWAC kickoff on ABC got $1.29 million in primetime. That's freaking awesome for them. And great exposure. That was up about 40% from the same setting for Jackson State and South Carolina State the year prior. So, numbers are up on the first weekend as far as a couple of the games go, and we'll see, obviously, as we get into this weekend, some of the bigger matchups, what kind of big audiences we're talking about.
Penn State, West Virginia, the games we've discussed before about this week. What is it? LSU and USC ought to be a nice one. That's a night game, right, Garrett?
A&M Notre Dame.
A&M Notre Dame at 6:30 will be a monster draw. And then, of course, down the road, just a couple of weeks, you got Texas and Michigan, among some others. By the way, I was just going through I know you're not going to. Jason Bean and Greg Ward, both Big 12. Greg Ward played with Houston when they were in the American Conference, but Jason Bean, they both were cut by the Colts.
Jason Bean was cut. That sucked. I think Sam Ellinger made it. I saw a Texas reporter, so maybe that's what pushed Bean out.
And Denzel Mims, cut by Jacksonville.
I mean, that's not a
His
surprise.
career is basically just in tatters.
UFL, buddy, see if you can get a reboot there.
He's been fortunate to hang around as long as he has, but he's bounced around so many times. It's like, UFL is probably his best bet if he wants to keep playing football.
Jared Wiley made the Chiefs.
That's fantastic.
So Jared Wiley
Great for
made
him.
the Chiefs.
I was looking at that. Phillip Brooks, Kansas State, cut by the Chiefs. I know there's a bunch of names. That's too many. We can go forever. Thank you, Craig.
That's it.
Craig Smoak off the radar every Tuesday and Thursday, the Dragon segment. And we are, of course, 365 Sports and Hall of Famer John McClain on the cuts and more. He is next. And again, if you have not hit the like and subscribe button, please do. Back in a moment. It's Waco Custom Marketplace. They're open Monday through Saturday. And right now, by the way, they have some specials for this week. But before I even tell you about them, they have charcoal and pellet fuel. And what you need when it comes to tailgating, tri-tip, brisket, hamburger, sausage, chicken wings. What you need, they have it. And they also have some of that that's big bags that have been frozen for you to have for your tailgate, cold beer and cold wine. Here are the specials for this week, including what is the Smokehouse box. $70 for one piece of a choice brisket, one piece of a whole chicken, and 5 pounds of Smoky Ridge hot links for tailgating. Bauer family, of course, which has food and product from what they have in their butcher shop all throughout the Central Texas area. And I told you the story. I was up in Dallas just maybe a couple of years ago, and I saw Waco Custom Meats, which is a part of their company, driving into the Dallas area to put food inside of a restaurant. So that's going on. Also, they have bone-in pork butt for $2.15 a pound. They have Wagyu ribeye steaks, $28.50 a pound, and 10% off. Tailgaters, listen, 10% off all charcoal and pellet fuel going on this week all the way up until they close their doors on Saturday afternoon. It's Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Hi, I'm Dana Hassel, President and CEO of American Bank. Waco is a great place for business, and for more than 70 years, American Bank has been the bank for business. We continue to invest in our growing community with state-of-the-art branches conveniently located to serve you within minutes. Our experienced bankers, lenders, and decision makers work directly with business owners like you every day, providing tailored solutions, timely answers, and local insights face-to-face. Schedule a meeting with one of our bankers today and find out what makes American Bank the bank for your business. Member FDIC.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
He is to humanity what bacon is to breakfast. He is allowed to use his cell phone on an airplane. He is Cesar Leal of Leal's Mexican Restaurant.
I don't always eat Mexican food, but when I do, I prefer Leal's.
Leal's Mexican Restaurant, 9000 Panther Drive in Woodway, 254-772-8140.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go, 365 Sports, and we mentioned, Craig did during his segment Off the Radar today, cut day in the NFL, and of course that'll kind of scatter throughout the week, people being picked up and dropped, and practice squads and more. John McClain joins us, NFL Hall of Famer, with us on 365 Sports. John, we kind of went over some of the cuts, some of them that pertain to even Big 12 or some names at Baylor, et cetera. Your thoughts, anything in particular that jumped out to you today?
Cleveland kept 4 quarterbacks with the idea of trading one of them, maybe Jameis Winston, but if teams see that they're trying to trade a quarterback when they kept 4, it means they're going to release somebody, and you might take a chance on getting them. On the other hand, if you give them a 7th-round pick, you're guaranteed of getting them. The cut to 53 doesn't mean nearly what it used to when you could have 6 on your practice squad. The fact that you can put 3, if they clear waivers, you can sign them to your practice squad. And usually out of 16, and your international player makes 17, you'll probably keep 12 of your guys and look for 4 from other teams. And at 53 changes, because right away, if you're part of the 53 and you get put on injured reserve, it means you have to miss at least 4 games and you can be activated. And you're limited to the number of activations you can have. If, for instance, you're Case Keenum, the Texans' 3rd quarterback, they put him on season-long injured reserve, and his best role as the 3rd-string quarterback is mentoring C.J. Stroud, which he did last year and did a great job, the unsung hero. So by being placed on injured reserve, he'll still make his $3 million. He'll still be around mentoring C.J. Stroud. Can't do it on the sideline during games, but teams do that. And so we're a long way from seeing final 53-man rosters. And usually every team, to keep some of the guys motivated, say from the 45th to the 53, they keep churning those roster spots. They get a revolving door at their facility or their stadium where they're bringing in players for tryouts. Bill Belichick did that for 20 years, and it was kind of a tried and true formula, and they certainly do that here since their GM, Nick Caserio, spent 20 years with Belichick. So it's very, very interesting to watch how things are done now. I know the Cowboys got only 1 draft choice who didn't make it. He'll be on the practice squad. Another one is on IR, and that's usually what it is. Teams want to keep as many of their draft picks around because it's easier to have your guys, if they're called on, who are familiar with your system, than some guy you've brought in and you have to teach him your system. And then in 2 or 3 weeks, he's got to be forced into the lineup.
John, did anything surprise you today about guys who maybe have gotten cut or not? And do you expect to see maybe another flurry of trades? Because there's been kind of a lot of those by normal standards.
No, I don't expect to see a flurry of trades, Paul, and nothing has surprised me because they can turn around tomorrow and they can sign guys to the practice squad, which is the next best thing, and you'll see them back. Everybody's getting a lot of time off coming up before they report on Monday to begin regular season. And so you'll see a lot of these guys back, and instead of being on the 53-man roster, they'll be on the practice squad. So it's not as big a deal as it used to be. We learn a lot more about injuries. A lot of head coaches try to keep injuries quiet. Like D'Amico Ryans, he won't acknowledge the guy's injured. So until the week of regular season, when they have to file an injury report, that's the first time we're going to know how bad somebody is. And their third-year linebacker, Christian Harris, who was a terror at the end of last season, he was placed on injured reserve as part of the 53-man roster, which means he's going to miss at least 4 games, and that's a blow to the defense.
So, John, a little piece of advice here, as I typically do a roundup after the 53-man rosters are, cut down. But when should I, and I do that in terms of, the Baylor guys on the roster for the website. So when would be the best time to actually do that? Like the week of the start of the regular season to have the, I guess, most clarity, because clearly there's a lot of plates in the air right now?
Well, that would be ideal, but when they come back to practice squads, they're not going to turn around and get cut. So once they sign the practice squads tomorrow, you can look over every roster and find those Baylor guys.
Okay.
And I think you'd be pretty safe in saying they at least are going into the season on the team.
Okay, thank you for that. I will get on that. And our long national nightmare is now over, John. The Dallas Cowboys and CeeDee Lamb have shockingly agreed to a new contract. He is going to be very handsomely paid, huge signing bonus. Your thoughts on Dallas finally getting this done, and did it need to take this long to begin with?
It's so interesting, Craig, the way Jerry Jones does business. He has these long holdouts. There's so much hand-wringing, but he never loses anybody he doesn't want to lose because of money. But after those long holdouts, he pays them money that he could have paid them a month ago and had him in training camp. Now, CeeDee Lamb is such a great player. I don't expect him to skip a beat, and that's if he has been working out. And I'm talking about there's a difference in being in shape, running around on a field, your high school field, and catching passes from some guy you used to play with, and NFL speed and NFL shape. So if he has a couple of drop passes early, it won't be a surprise. But if he has 150 yards, it won't be a surprise either because he's a great receiver. And I just have never seen anybody pay as much as Jerry will pay, but put him through hell. And if he doesn't get Dak Prescott done, even at $60 million, if he rolls the dice and all of a sudden they win 12 again, and Dak wins a couple of playoff games or wins the Super Bowl, Jerry would be so happy. But think how much it would cost when he's going to be an unrestricted free agent coming off a great season. No matter what happens, it's always cost you more if you wait. And that's the way it was with Lamb. That's the way it's going to be with Dak. And that's the way it's going to be with Micah Parsons.
Why then is he so risk averse all of a sudden? Because that's all this is that, he can say things like he's all in, but the Cowboys are so afraid of the salary cap and they still wind up screwing it up. Nothing that they do makes any sense anymore, John.
Well, bleep, Paul. He's the best bleeper that's out there doing the business. He's the smartest SOB, and he's a bad mother bleeper. And, people that have dealt with Jerry knows he likes to cuss, but most people, you bleep it out or you don't use it. But Clarence Hill is with that new website in Dallas, and obviously they let him use every word Jerry said. A lot of people are like, oh, my God, Jerry Jones talks like that. Well, a lot of them do. And so it didn't surprise me, but his high opinion of himself makes me think Clarence interviewed him after he had a few pops.
Johnny Walker Blue, baby.
Might have been that little party they have down in L.A.
I can tell you this.
At training camp.
When we were at the one at Sky Bar, wherever we were, I was up at the bar when he was there, and he got his vodka out of what looked like a tabernacle. Like, seriously, they opened it up and was like, here you go. That's his stuff. So
you think he's ever been there before? Other times.
I mean, or he just had it brought in. So
yeah.
At the combine, Jerry, he doesn't go up on his bus. He goes up on his jet. But his drivers bring his bus up. They park it outside the hotel. People can go take pictures of it, and it's no secret where they are. Well, Jerry will have a meeting once a year where he invites the media over there at night. And Jerry likes to drink, and they can get some of their best stuff. I know when he came here to the Houston Sports Awards to present the late Bob McNair with a Lifetime Achievement Award, I introduced Jerry, and he came by himself, no security, no anything. And I was told, make sure he's got a drink and he knows where the bathroom is, and he'll be good to go.
And what is his preferred type of liquor?
I think it's vodka. I think he's a vodka guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't do that. I can't do anything but like any kind of whiskey that's got a little sugar to it, like Crown or something like that. I'm not.
He wasn't drinking beer and he wasn't drinking wine.
Yeah. John, the NFL's about to start. There's still like this gap between the cuts and then eventually the games. Your thoughts would you take Kansas City against the field right now with Mahomes and where they are?
I would not, David. I would take the field. And the reason is the odds. Now, if you'd asked me this question last year, I would have said I'd take the field because there's a reason no team since the Patriots early 2000s has won back-to-back Super Bowls. Then they did it. Nobody's won 3 in a row in the Super Bowl era. Some have won 3 in a row before the Super Bowl, but there's the other teams are talented. There's so many talented quarterbacks and coaches out there. People study Patrick Mahomes constantly. And one reason they can't get a grip on him is because he goes into the game with a game plan, and then he does things he had no clue he was going to be doing. And that if he doesn't plan for himself, and some of these plays that he makes with eyes in the back of his head, how can the opponent's game plan for that? All they know is to expect the unexpected when it's Patrick Mahomes, and those things he does, whether it's a behind-the-back pass to Kelsey in preseason, they always seem to work. They don't get intercepted in return for touchdowns because even though he does something like that, I'm guessing if he were leading a fast break in basketball before he did a behind-the-back pass, he'd be damn sure that he was in position to do it, and the guy who was going to catch it had the ability to make it and make it safe instead of the bad pass going for a turnover. So he's been extremely fortunate that some of these wild and crazy plays that he makes that get so much attention are successful. And, it drives Andy Reid crazy. And I'm sure he holds his breath sometimes when he sees it, but we don't see it backfire.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not like he blanks on himself. It's a unique. It's not like he does it a lot, but he does it, and it is just part of the game that he plays. It's just it's just incredible. It really is how good he is.
Backyard football. Can you imagine the way he must have been when he was playing out in the street, in the yard, when he thought he might be a baseball player, but he's a football player, and some of the things he would pull off with the neighborhood.
Oh, I bet you.
John, I've told this story before, but there was, his father obviously was pretty well known, especially in a small town like where I grew up, 100,000 people. So he's like the only Major League Baseball player from the city. But we were hearing about his son, this young Patrick Jr. We were hearing about him when he was probably like late elementary, early middle school.
Yeah, he would hang around the Rangers Club.
It was always like he was going to be a baseball player, though. And then all of a sudden he got to high school, and I ended up covering his games his sophomore and junior years. He was actually a safety as a sophomore. And then he took over at quarterback, and I guess credit to Cliff Kingsbury for seeing it before anybody else, but he was doing stuff like that back then. It's just amazing that he still somehow kind of flew under the radar. But, what an incredible athlete.
Those kind of guys, yes, they work hard. They get offended that people think they don't work hard. It comes naturally, and he works his butt off just like all of them do.
Yep.
And I'm guessing, is he in practice flipping passes behind his back? Maybe when they're not serious. And I don't think he orchestrates those things. They're just instinctive.
Mm-hmm. I saw Bobby Stroop, who still trains him.
Here's the thing. Bobby Stroop has moved up to Kansas City because he's trained Patrick Mahomes. John, his other client, one of his other clients is Bobby Witt Jr.
Yeah,
you talk about a boon in Kansas City sports training when you got Patrick Mahomes and Bobby Witt Jr. That's amazing.
It's an impressive client list, and I would think that he could add just about anybody he wanted to. And I'm guessing, though, he keeps it down so he can focus on those guys. Because, my God, Bobby Witt's an MVP candidate. They're coming to Houston. I'm going to see them on Sunday. And it's amazing how many great young shortstops are in Major League Baseball right now. All 25 are under. And I can't wait to see Bobby Witt.
Yeah, they train with Patrick on some of the things you see him do, like spin moves on top of somebody's body. It's pretty amazing. Thank you very much, John. As always, we appreciate your time.
Thank you, and stick 'em Bears.
Thank you very much, John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, Tuesdays, usually around 5:30.
I don't know who else Bobby trains at this point. I know it's a lot of like Royals and Chiefs, just people in that area. But I mean, I can't imagine too many people have a better 1-2 of clients than for right now and for the next like 10 years.
Yeah. Well, you hope, yeah.
No, you hope, yeah. But I think you feel pretty good too about that. God willing.
He started out, and we've had him on this show, but he started out in a metal building, kind of in a corner tucked around what was some other business in the front, and now has state-of-the-art, or I think he may have sold it. No, he's got one in Tyler, like a couple other places in Dallas, but he has done an amazing job. While he was on with us, Tanner Mordecai released, but not a surprise, but has had a really good preseason. He really played pretty well for them, the 49ers, but he may be a practice squad guy.
Yeah, not like the 49ers have like the most surefire quarterback. I mean, it's a big year for Brock Purdy coming up here, but that's unfortunate. I mean, I guess I'm not too shocked by him not making a roster because I feel like it took me a little while to learn that like guys who are really, really good in college aren't necessarily going to even make an NFL roster. Yeah. And he was pretty good to really good at times. So, that's like I was saying earlier, we could have taken an hour of the show and just talked about the names that we recognize from the cut list. And there's so many guys who are bigger stars than he was in college that aren't going to make it. So, yeah, that's the nature of the NFL, and that also is why it's the absolute best at what they do every Sunday and, whatever other weekdays they're on at this point. It's like every day nearly. But, yeah, I mean, you've got to be the best of the best to make that 53-man roster in a lot of ways, and so you're seeing that.
I do have a correction to make. I said Anaya Smith did make the Eagles. He's going to IR, designated to return. He's
running back from A&M. I thought,
wide receiver, yeah.
So. Oh, is that what he – okay. Yeah. He kind of reminds me of a much bigger version of Deuce Vaughn, who made the cut with the Cowboys. Caden Stearns dropped that famous interception in a game for Texas. He was cut. And then Gabe Hall from Baylor, who was not drafted, is that right? But a guy that got a lot of love, but he also was cut.
By the way, Deuce Vaughn is something the Cowboys have been trying to figure out for years, is a small Darren Sproles. They've wanted a Darren Sproles, but they don't know how to, like, it would be like you buying a Mac. Like, you'd be like, I've got a Mac. And then you're like constantly going, what do I do with this thing?
Man, I love him to death. Have had people who have been around him who sing nothing but his praises. But man, like the size thing, like when you really saw him out there, he's little. Like even when you say like, oh, he's a smaller guy, there's plenty of guys in it. It's like no, like it's like jarring how small he is.
At the Big 12 Pro Day, he was doing a workout. Like he does group workouts outside at the Star.
But I love him to death, and he's super talented. But it was that first time I saw him in an NFL game, I was like, oh my gosh.
But if you had said, hey, there's an NFL player leading this group CrossFit workout or whatever he was doing out there, and you had to pick. There were 4 guys there. You've been like, oh, it's definitely that guy.
Yeah, they're probably
before you said Deuce Vaughn.
No.
Yeah.
I wish him the best.
I'm glad he made it. Yeah, that's awesome.
I just love those type stories of guys who, when he was like probably in Pop Warner.
But Paul's right. Small. I don't think that they quite know how to use him. Holding on, I don't think they have quite unlocked like the best way to utilize him.
Yeah, no. Look, Will Shipley is on, and he's bigger obviously than Deuce Vaughn, but Will Shipley is that same kind of player that Deuce Vaughn was at Kansas State. Will Shipley was that at Clemson. the Eagles will figure out a way to use Will Shipley, and the Cowboys will sit in the room going, we've got this.
So they have Barkley, and then who's the guy? Gainwell, who I thought was pretty good, and now they have
Will Shipley, who's going to score a touchdown in a big game for the Eagles this year, and I'm going to be like, ah!
Yeah. Man, we've gone through a lot, including in the last hour with Off the Radar, and then John McClain, the top 5 around the corner. Back at it again tomorrow. Every weekday at 3 until 6 Central with 365 Sports. I went and I couldn't get in the chat room for a long time. And, it's just, again, people eating their own, but it's just so much fun to kind of watch some of the stories that go back and forth in the arguments. But thank you for being a part of what you do. We're not done. Paul Catalina and his top 5 coming up around the corner.
For Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Today we continue to build our perfect college football team. It's time for the specialists. Okay, we're talking kickers, we're talking punters, we're talking returners, we're talking long snappers. And you're damn right I found a long snapper. By the way, use promo code 365sports at TexasBeefHouse.com and bid on beef for the auction this week and get $25 off of your order. So that's going to be a great deal for you. Jack and I are going to be in that auction this week. We missed out last time, not this time. This time, we're going to win some meat. Let's get into it. Long snapper. Yeah, I found him. I was dared to yesterday by everyone in this room that I couldn't find a long snapper. Well, guess what? There's an award for long snappers called the Patrick Manley Award, named after the longtime Bears long snapper. And I picked Luke Elkin of Iowa. You know why? Because where else would a long snapper be great but Iowa? Fundamentals are the most important thing. We're taking Luke Elkin of Iowa as our long snapper. Look at that form right there. I need to say nothing else about this because I found one. Next up, kick returner, Zachariah Branch from USC. 24 kick returns last year, had 1 return touchdown, but his average was fantastic. He was a big part of that. Like this year, you'll expect to see him a lot at wide receiver and at running back as well. He's kind of a jack-of-all-trades player, but an excellent kick returner who, look, if I am making my perfect college football team, Zachariah Branch is my kick returner. Big playability anytime he touches the ball. And if they go to the NFL kickoff rule in the next year, I think he would be even more lethal his true junior season for the Trojans. Punt returner. The best in the country last year at Florida Atlantic, at least the best returning returner, so to speak. LeJontay Wester of Colorado. He's at Florida Atlantic last year. He's with the Buffs this year. He's a receptions machine, but he's also a fantastic punt returner. He can do a lot of things. This is going to make a huge difference for the Buffs this year if they can rotate him in there. Travis Hunter will obviously get some of that as well. But LaJohntay Wester should probably be their punt returner because he's better at it than anybody they have on their roster right now. And he should be fun to watch with Coach Prime and the Buffs. Punter, Alex Mastromano from Florida State. Yes, I love him like a son, even though he is a punter. But he's fantastic. Big leg, huge average, Australian, mullet. What's not to love about this guy? Big ripped dude, too. He's kind of like those old school, like Darren Bennett punters in the NFL. Can get huge average. Is good on kickoffs, too, when he does that. Absolutely a weapon for your team because he can cough and corner anybody and has punts like when you're deep in your own territory, can flip the field for you and has gotten better each and every year in Tallahassee. And finally, our kicker. I mean, who's the perfect college football kicker? Well, the one that you have to steal, right? Graham Nicholson at Bama. He was at Miami, Ohio last year. Well, his coach was not too happy with Kalen DeBoer and said, Alabama stole the kicker right off our roster, to which Kalen DeBoer's like, we didn't steal anybody. We made him an offer and he came here of his own volition. And so if you're going to steal a kicker at Alabama, if Alabama is going to steal you, and I'm not saying they did, I'm not saying they didn't. I'm not taking sides in this argument. But if a kicker is going to create a beef between coaches, then that kicker is on my damn team. I'm telling you right now. Plus, he's really good. He was the best in the country last year at Miami, Ohio. The most efficient kicker, big leg, and now he's going to get a chance to do that in the SEC. So if I'm building the perfect college football team, I'm taking a kicker who you're willing to steal. I think that that's something. I don't know. I like the Ocean's 11 intrigue here that, Kalen DeBoer just walked in there with 10 of his buddies and walked out with the kicker at Miami, Ohio. That's going to do it for this Top 5. Tomorrow, the coaching staff of the perfect college football team. This is 365 Sports.
All right, so you cannot have other head coaches, only one head coach, right?
Yes. So I'm going to have a head coach, a defensive coordinator, an offensive position coach, and a defensive position coach.
What about the offensive coordinator?
Like OC, DC, head coach, offensive position coach, defensive position coach.
What about you? You just talked about special teams.
Yeah, but see, here's what pisses me off about college. Only like a third of them have special teams coaches, and then the other ones kind of combine it into somebody's job, which makes me mad. So it's a little harder to pick a special teams coach because I'm not sure.
Why don't you have a Frank Beamer out of retirement?
That would be it, but it's active.
Coach?
It's active, yeah. So
it'd be the Frank Beamer list. Like, it would be named after him.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't think you can bring him out of retirement to place him on the list, however. It's not current.
But by the way,
like Baylor's guy is a quality control coach. That's their special teams guy.
Yeah.
Quality control coach.
Everybody does it. It's annoying. But Smokey called me out yesterday and said that I could not find long snappers. That was going to be too hard. Well, as you heard in the piece, Patrick Manley Award has a list of good long snappers.
Yeah, but you had to look it up.
Yeah.
Well, I know. I get it. Garrett, do you have the one, the Oklahoma State, Alan Bowman, Paul hates him tweet?
Hang on, let me look. I don't have my list anymore. I don't think so.
Okay.
I'll read
what
it.
happened to it?
I'll read it to everybody.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Well, first of all, Flyover State fan did not. He tagged the two of you in the tweet, but didn't tag me directly, which he's welcome to do so.
Why I brought it up so you would know about it, but you already did.
And I'm sorry, I don't ever check my Twitter mentions, like hardly ever. I need to be better about that this football season, but I did not notice that. Sorry.
So
here it is.
Yeah.
You want me to read it?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Great show. He tagged Craig and me. Great show as always, fellas. I know Catalina trashes him, but I think with all starters on O-line and a very experienced group of wide receivers coming back, Bowman will be better. He had the third most yards in the league last year while having a Doak Walker winner, and one of the things I said in return was he has to protect the football no matter the yards passing. He has to protect the football. 15 touchdowns, 14 picks is no-go.
1-1. That's why. And if all those starters are all back, that's great for Oklahoma State, but he was still 15-14 with that same team.
Yep. Now we got just like random people walking in the studio.
It's not random. It's Ryan and Walker.
It looks like he's grown a little bit. Walker I've not met yet. Craig, thank you. Paul, thank you. Tomorrow we'll pick 4 more of the Big 12 games to discuss along with other guests that we have. 4, Garrett Ross. 4, Emery Winter, who's dialing up all the editing in his magician hands on 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 on the CW. Jack McKenzie, Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak. Thanks to our sponsors and those of us, you who watch. Good night on 365 Sports.